You expect me to talk?
Greetings, one and all, and welcome to episode 146 of Do You Expect Us to Talk? I'm Becca, and as always, joined by illustrious co-hosts Chris and Dave. How are you both?
Total rankers, the pair of us.
Not off.
Good evening, folks.
My very own Smashy and Nicey.
Yeah, although I went to see Harry Enfield live a couple of years ago, and it turned out that Dave Nice had been caught up in Operation U Tree.
Oh no!
So I'm a little bit careful about being associated with that pair now.
I won't mention them at all. That's it.
For anyone listening in another country, Smashy and Nicey, Smashy with EY on the end. It's a pair of radio DJs he used to do as characters.
Yeah, it was
they were really
cool.
cool.
White House.
And if you could go and watch a few sketches and then look up Smashy and Nicey, the end of an era, which is when they did a documentary after they'd been resigned. Yeah.
This is very 20, 30 years old now.
Yeah, it is.
It's still very funny and classic gem of classic British comedy.
Yeah.
What was their catchphrase? I mean, I know they keep playing the same song, but that was a gag. They always ended
Let's
up with
rock.
Yeah.
Blackman Turner Overdrive. Let's rock.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, that's what they would play at the end of every sketch. Yeah.
Legend. Anyway, listeners, as you may have gathered, we have reached the end of this particular phase of our journey through the MCU, and we have come to our rankings episode.
We've only ever done about 3, but I know this will be the 3rd, but I know our Bond ranking episode particularly is like one of our more popular episodes. People seem to enjoy them. So, but you've got to have a decent run of episodes to be able to do it. I mean, we're not going to be able to do one at the end of Mission Impossible. It'd be about 20 minutes long, wouldn't it?
We can tell you the order now.
Yeah, probably with a couple of not sures, but roughly.
I think any film series with at least 6 films in this, 6 to 10 films in the series.
You got to have over 10 to even consider it. So I think we might consider a Star Wars ranking later in this year because we've been asked several times, always by the same person, but he asks a lot. So we might consider that. But yeah, we've only ever done 2 of these before. We did one for Bond and we did one for Star Trek as well.
It's only natural that we do one for the MCU.
Yeah, I don't know when we'll next do one. I don't know.
And we do another film that's massive.
Pixar or something. I don't know.
Yeah, probably Disney.
No, apart from Star Wars, because obviously the Skywalker saga is ending this year.
When we do all the westerns.
And there'll be 11 films there. So I still think that's pushing it. And I think the Star Wars films, apart from the spin-offs, kind of go into 3 blocks, really. But if Charlie's Game, we'll do a ranking later in the year for that one. All the westerns, yeah. Well, that's 4 films in our version of all the westerns, so that wouldn't take very long. So yeah, I suppose at the outset, in terms of how hard did you find this to rank, and what's your thinking been behind it?
See, I know what, I didn't find it that difficult to rank these. I just kind of did it on my phone. I listed them all out and I just sort of did it in order of preference, and I thought about some. I was like, oh, which one do I prefer? And I thought, yeah, you know what. But it is pretty difficult when you get for a large part of them, for the midsection of where to put it. And even in the top end, because you got you think of all the decent top end Marvel films, you just think, oh, Christ, how do I put that? But I thought once I got into it, I didn't find it too difficult. That being said, those things on social media, you've got God tier and that and whatnot, where I'm pretty sure they're made up just to piss people off. That's pretty sure.
Oh yeah, because they stick bounties in the god tier. You're fucking mental.
Or it's like rich tea. It's like, who the fuck wants rich tea?
Yeah, you eat rich tea when you're on a diet, but you're still a compulsive eater.
When you've got
That's
nothing
the
else in, it's like, oh well.
And anyway, we know there's only one make of bourbon. Well, one make of biscuits. That was a Freudian slip.
Yeah. But yeah, anyway, my rankings is probably going to play like that for a lot of people. There'll be some that people go like, "What the fuck is he thinking?" But yeah.
No, I think
Yes,
I'm
no,
going to
it's
agree
not-
with you guys.
I can guess now. Chris, do not confirm or deny, but I bet he's got Thor in the top 6. Anyway, carry on. Anyway, go on.
It's in there somewhere. Okay, where did I place it? I can't remember.
Don't tell us now. That ruins the show.
I've got a Thor film
So
in there.
that answers what my second question was going to be. Do you think what you've got is fairly controversial? So in Chris's case, yes. Becca, have you actually finished the ranking? Or
I
you
did. I
like,
found it really hard.
Honestly, by yesterday, I think it was 2 days ago, Becca went, "I've got the top 2." Well,
I like the top 3 and then the bottom 2, and I was like,
that
oh,
was
what?
it. She had 5 done. Bear in mind, we've been at this 11 months.
I found it quite hard to do.
2 days from recording, she goes, "I got 5 of them done." I was like, oh my
I haven't done it. No, I like to save it all up to the end. I don't rank as I go.
No.
It's like ranking the Bond films. It's like choosing your children, isn't it? Which is the favourite. Difficult to do. But yeah, it always changes. It always changes.
It depends on your mood as well. It depends on personal preference. Like as Dave is always like, do you put importance? Do you put in terms of like how it's held, like critically, objectively good, or in terms of personal favourite? How do you gauge this? And that alone is very tricky, especially when it comes to Marvel, when a lot of them are kind of, they are like of a similar standard in a various different ways. So it's like, how do you compare the two? I mean, I think once you get
the added dimension it's got that Bond doesn't have is you're ranking them as films and then as part of the whole, and you've got to like balance how important both of those things are. It's a bit like if every film was like Star Trek 3. I don't mean in standard, I just mean like they all relate to something else.
Yeah.
And then occasionally you get one that sort of stands alone. Do you think what you've got's in any way controversial, Becca, or do you look at it and go, yeah, I think most people will get why I've done that?
Okay, so I'm one of these people I have to constantly ask other people, is this okay? Is what I'm doing right? So I did a bit of research and saw how other more important websites rank their films.
There's a more important website than ours.
It's more important than us, you know.
Literally gone to the CIA website and that was it.
Yeah, I literally went to like the top men, down in that vault.
How does the FBI rank the Marvel Cinematic Universe? That's
Hold on,
what I
let me just
want to
phone
know.
the director. Hold on.
Yeah. They put Captain America, the first Avenger, right near the bottom because it was a bit near the knuckle for them. They were like, shit, that's completely how we work.
I couldn't get hold of Trump because he was in Japan, so on a state visit. No. I think people are just going to sort of dismiss my choices and be like, "Sure about."
Oh
So-
yeah, people are going to dismiss my choices. I won't worry about it, Becca.
I kind of, when approaching this, I thought, okay, I'm going to do this from mainly. Okay, where does, in terms of its, how do I say it? In terms of its, like cultural importance, like Black Panther is a landmark in terms of cinema as a whole, not just within the MCU or comic book adaptations, but just in cinema as a whole. So obviously I'm going to rank that quite highly. Films like Winter Soldier, it's a callback to this paranoia thriller movies of the 70s, and it's very apt to what's going on in today's political landscape. But then also it comes from like my own, how do I approach the film? So things like Guardians of the Galaxy, which I wasn't that familiar with, Doctor Strange I wasn't that familiar with, for example. And it's also a little bit of, did I have a good time with these films? Did I enjoy them? So I've kind of ranked them from lots of different things. So that's the cultural aspect. I can't get my words out this evening. So it's kind of their cultural contribution, I guess, to cinema as a whole. Did I have a good time with them? Did I enjoy them? And that sort of thing. And also in terms of their technical prowess as well. Obviously, I think because you can kind of see the evolution, or certainly in terms of CGI as well, but like costume, makeup, things like that. Certainly since Iron Man and beyond. So
I sense a lot of doubt from the pair of you, not in your choices, but like what are people going to think of this? Funnily enough, with mine, I wrote a skeleton ranking at the outset with a couple of like placeholders where I hadn't seen them yet and stuff like that, and I agonised in about 3 places. I agonised right at the top. I agonised in the bottom 3. The bottom 3 are the bottom 3. They were always the bottom 3, but the order of them and the logic, and we'll get to that. And there's a run of about 3 or 4 in the middle where I'm a little bit. I thought about it a lot, but now I'm sat looking at it. I just think that's a really quite an obvious ranking. Obviously, there are 22 films there and so many variables that it's unlikely to match anyone's list exactly. But I look at it and go, there's not much that controversial in there. I think there are 2. I think there are 2 films I've ranked considerably lower than most people would have them. But even then, I think they're in the quote-unquote correct half. So, I mean, I'm not suggesting, for example, I mean, it isn't this film, but I'm just picking another film that ranks high. But I haven't stuck The Winter Soldier in the bottom half or something. So it's nothing like that. So I've agonised and agonised and agonised, and now I've looked at it, and I think, leave it alone. That looks about right. There's a couple that I could put round the other way, and like I say, there's a run of about 4 in the middle that could almost go in any order. And I do need to explain the logic almost of my bottom 3, because I'm not entirely consistent. In some places I've gone a little bit off preference, in some places I've gone a little bit off quality. I think as well, I do sort of almost grade on a curve. There's a little bit of what my expectation was. When we get into the bottom 3, I'll explain that, because there's one film I've forced myself to rank higher than I wanted, simply because it was hands down my most disappointing experience of the whole series. But it doesn't make it the worst film of the series. And when you do rewatch the whole thing, as we did, you're watching a certain film rather than watching it a year after the previous one. You're watching it 1 week after the previous one, and it does lend a different perspective. I've rewatched about 8 or 9 of them just to be absolutely sure of my ranking, particularly informing my top 2 and something around the bottom as well. But now, honestly, I'm looking at a list now and I'm thinking, no, I'm perfectly happy with that. After all that agonising, I don't have a single doubt really about what I've got, and I don't think, with a couple of entries aside, that even then are broadly okay. I don't think I've got any shockers. I haven't got like Incredible Hulk in the top 5 or something. There is nothing. There is nothing there that I go, people will not understand what I've done. So yeah, no, I'm pretty happy with my list.
Yeah, I think my tactic was the same old usual, in terms of quality and personal preference, with a little bit of just an element of what just generally stuck with me. Also came in what like decision making. Like, oh well, you know what? I think I have more of a fondness, like sort of a reminiscence about this, or that had something about it that just stayed with me more than say that one. Even though that one's like of a higher standard, in a weird way. So
yeah,
there
absolutely.
was partly that, but yeah, that was my way of going into this. I was just like, right, what do I think it is good, and then I'll just fill through like which ones I prefer over the top, and it just naturally just evolved over that really. But yeah,
I'm very taken with. There's a couple of films when we did Bond. I wrote a skeleton ranking, and very little changed. You know, as I went through it, there were little adjustments. But I remember submitting my list to those 2. We haven't seen each other's list tonight. I think that worked better in Star Trek, so we've not shared it. Plus, Becca's still writing those probably. But
I could still be ranking them as we speak.
No, I've done it.
Quick.
Honest. No, I've done it. No, done.
Panic station.
It's not official till we stated it, so we could. I mean, I was just looking at the midsection, thinking, should I just move free around now? Because I'm like,
You audibly did that during Bond. You got to A View to a Kill and then named it about 3 films later. I know I could hear
I better move it up.
But with the Bond series, when we got to, there are some similarities in that there's one film I've ranked perhaps a little higher based on its importance. The GoldenEye effect, one could call it, because I stuck GoldenEye in the top half, and on preference, I certainly wouldn't. But it belonged, and I've done that here. But also with the Bond rankings, I remember I submitted my list, and a day or two later, something wasn't sitting right, and I remember moving Skyfall down a couple of places. I've had 1 or 2 of those, and I'll explain when we get there, because there's one film in particular that's dropped about 3 places. But apart from that, no, it's all roughly where it was. We always, as we go through this, you can always change your mind because it's verbal. But I am keeping a list, and I'll be keeping a list for all 3 of us so we can refer back. Chris, would you like to take us through the list as per previous one?
Yeah. Okay. So.
But hang on. Last order of business. Please both confirm you've got a list of 22 films.
Yes, I do.
Right, okay.
I'll just quickly count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well, this is what I did. Cause I did a numbered list, and I thought, right, I'm going to write them all down and make sure I've got them all. And I haven't ended up with 21 or 23 or 24 films.
Yeah, I don't want to get there and you go, there was a second Guardians film?
Mm?
Oh, yeah.
Or like there was another Hulk film that we ranked. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And at number 14,
But no, for the moment, obviously, we did the 2008 Hulk movie. Not including Far From Home just yet. Not did things. We didn't include things like Venom. Obviously, not Howard the Duck.
We've no plan with Marvel in that we might return to it next year and do 3. We might return to it in 4 years' time and do 12 or 14 or whatever. So yeah, no plans. But this is our last Marvel for a long time, and we're not really going to be thinking about Marvel from now on. Although, if you want to hear what we think of Spider-Man: Far From Home, Chris and I will cover it in the second volume of our summer review. The first volume we'll record next weekend because we were going to do a Bond commentary, but our schedule's been interrupted by a sex offender, hasn't it, Becca?
Oh my god!
We were supposed to record last.
Yeah, unfortunately, we had a bit of local news. Unfortunately,
but after Becca was questioned by the police.
That sounds really dodgy, but it's not.
We had to push
Becca.
She said, "I'm not home yet." The police came.
No, so unfortunately, the circus came to town, and there was unfortunately reports of a sexual assault in a local area of Salisbury. They're trying to chase, obviously trying to track down the person who did it. They've released a leaflet of this white young male, who could very well have been with the circus. But I was visiting family over the weekend. It reminded me a bit of the Red Skull, but obviously not red. But he had quite a sort of, you could see quite high cheekbones. But no, I was visiting family over the weekend and was delayed a little bit because we had I'm guessing PCSO or local policeman literally going door to door, just getting information. He was there for quite a while, and just get some information on any kind of witness accounts, things like that. I'd read about it.
Described the flying Graysons to him. They've gone off to arrest Robin.
They've gone off to see Robin definitely.
Yeah. But it does. Yeah,
it was a bit delayed by the slight interview, but it's a bit hairy. But I was like, oh dear.
But that means we're recording this a day late, which means we can't record the Bond commentary until Becca comes back from her holiday. But we will miss a week of Do You Expect Us to Talk, but we won't miss a week full stop because we'll stick out.
I'm on my holiday. I might try and do a Facebook Live if I can.
Cool.
But otherwise, if not, I'll just tweet my lovely photos from the account.
So in the interim, we'll record a part 1 of our summer review. So we'll do that next week. So that'll be the next episode you hear after this. Anyway. I unsuccessfully handed over to Chris. Now I'm going to do it successfully. See if you can spot the difference, Chris.
Okay, so yeah. So as I was saying before, it's difficult to rank these things. So I think by the time you get to like the sort of the top 4-ish, you're kind of reaching like films of a similar standard. So while some films might feel like, oh, Bryce, that's low, but it really it's like you're spitting hairs. But I'll start off with my number 22 is Hulk, or the Incredible Hulk. I put as the bottom of the list. Not necessarily because it's a film I hate. It's just I don't. It has less importance to the overall universe. It doesn't really go anywhere. Like I think if I remember rightly, the fact that I had to try and remember the film, it didn't really have much of a story, and it was just it was fine. I think, but it's just a bit of a meh film. While I think there are other worse films, at least have something else in it. So yeah, I think Hulk is, or The Incredible Hulk is my number 22. What's everyone else's number 22?
To your surprise, my number 22 is also The Incredible Hulk. I think this is probably one where we're going to agree.
Probably.
That's what Dave says. But yes, that's my number 22.
Well, what was your reasoning?
It's a bad film.
Okay.
I was short of time and had to write down some names.
Quick. No, it's better than the other one. I think of the two modern Hulk movies, it's the better of the two.
Yeah, but it's not as good as the one where Bill Bixby meets Daredevil.
No, that's true.
I think what cemented it for me as being like number at the bottom was like, I just remember that bit with that like gloop drooping on that scientist's head, like teasing like the next villain. I was like, oh no, that's never gonna happen.
Yeah. I listened to a few of our podcasts as well because I didn't have time or inclination to watch all of the films. So I really wanted to sort of, where I was trying to split the difference between films, you know, I did a mixture of watching them. I watched The Incredible Hulk, for example. But I listened to what I had to say at the time. And an element of me ranking these has to be trusting me 6 months ago or me 4 months ago or whatever. My last film is Thor: The Dark World. And I think when we went into this series, I wasn't going to rank it that low, because I remember having a reasonable time with it. Well, if you want a decent review out of me, right, when you're making a film, just make Act 3 good. If it's an action film, because I'm so shit with Act 3 and think generally they're so bad in most films that if you do something different and a little bit inventive in Act 3, I go, well, at least they made an effort. And I wasn't that in love with the first Thor film. I've got a habit of doing this. I did that during Endgame. I kept saying Thor when I meant Hulk and vice versa. But I put it bottom, trusting my review on it, in that I listened back to what I said about Thor: The Dark World, and I was listening to someone who'd had a bit of a shock at how bad it had been, because I'd wandered out of the cinema having a reasonable time with it. I'd enjoyed Act 3, you know, Kat Dennings, probably, bit of all that. When I rewatched it, I didn't like it, and it was clearly the worst review I gave of these bottom three films. So therefore, in isolation, I'm a little bit surprised. I don't think I went into this series expecting to rank it bottom, but yes, in line with what I said as we reviewed these films, it was definitely the one I struggled with most. So Thor: The Dark World at 22 for me. I tell you what, I will kick us off with the next one, because just to stay on a theme, my number 21 is The Incredible Hulk. Now, I'm not going to say too much about it, but I think Chris hit on it. It didn't really stand out. It's one of those films. This is where I got myself wrapped up in knots on the whole cinematic universe thing. Do I rank it low because it doesn't matter to the rest of the films? But had it been a brilliant standalone that they'd never referenced again, would I, and still replaced the Hulk, CG model and Edward Norton, but it had been really good, would I still be ranking it low because it didn't matter? Actually, Marvel hadn't really got their template by now. I'd enjoyed it at the time, but even things like the sky, they digitally replaced their skies most of the time. Marvel, they didn't do it in this film. I'm not saying they should, but I just mean it doesn't look like a Marvel film. It has none of the real humour of a Marvel film. There's always one-liners in these things, you wouldn't like me when I'm hungry, that sort of thing. But it's not that funny. It's not that interesting. It doesn't matter to the rest of the universe. And again, as we reviewed it, there's nothing to it. It's an incredibly thin film with incredibly ugly CG. So yeah, a 21 for me is The Incredible Hulk.
And I think you're probably right. That's what I kind of thought really, but I think as well to pick up on Dark World, that is my number 21. Mostly because it is just a very blah film. I think the only thing that puts it above it really is, apart from
Kat Dennings.
Well, I was going to say Chris Hemsworth. I was going to say Chris Hemsworth actually being that, but but at least this kind of has some sort of tangibleness to the rest of the universe. So I think that's the reason what put it above there. Other than that, I think it's just a complete missed opportunity. I think Thor's probably like the best character that they've kind of never really capitalised on. He's kind of had most of his best moments with the other Avengers, I think, or maybe with Loki. But I think Thor's probably like Thor 2 is definitely one of the poorest ones.
Well, snap, because at my number 21, I also have Thor: The Dark World. I think it's only elevated by Christopher Eccleston.
Christopher Eccleston.
What, the worst thing in it?
Although he is a very blah villain, as you say. Yeah, I think of all the anticipated sequels in that particular line, I think this is probably like the least anticipated sequel. But yeah, it's just it doesn't really have kind of far-reaching consequences, unfortunately. Quite a dull storyline. I haven't gone back to any of his podcasts and listened to what I thought of the film, unfortunately. But yeah, and CGI is a bit, but you can kind of, I don't know, they're trying at least, definitely. And to have a big name at Eccleston, obviously, big Doctor Who fan.
Evidently, because you named him as like the redeeming factor in it. He's dreadful.
Yeah, he's like the best thing in it, unfortunately, which is saying a lot. So, yeah, sadly, I ranked this at my number 21 spot.
I think as well, if you go back, I mean, certainly we had an unforeseen break in our podcast. We had two of them, in fact, very close together. And Thor: The Dark World was, I think, the last one before a break, because we came back with The Winter Soldier. Now, since we came back after the second break, which I think we came back with Ant-Man, the episodes have been a bit longer, and it is almost like we've had a break and we've been a bit refreshed. So there may be an element of that to it. But Thor: The Dark World was our slightest, shortest episode since early Bond. I mean, literally, in the first 3 or 4 episodes of Bond, when we were trying to work out what we were as a podcast, and we were putting out, hour and 20-minute episodes and that, since we started hitting an hour and 40, and, I mean, even Death Proof, we got an hour and 41 out of. The Dark World was an hour and 33-minute podcast. There was just nothing there. We were fucking
We didn't have a lot to say, did we?
Yeah, it was a real struggle. The villain shit, and at least they made an effort with Act 3. Good night, folks. So, yeah, I can understand why we've got it as low as we have. So our bottom twos are all the same. Mine is just the other way round from you two.
I think that's going to be our ranking all the way across, I think.
I don't think so. I think there's going to be some big differences as we go along.
I'm going to piss off the internet now with my number 20.
I know what's coming.
Yeah.
Go
on. Captain Marvel.
Yeah, no, I thought so.
Yep. Yeah.
Actually, speak to me in a
she
different
can't,
time.
she's a woman.
Well, I just did, so deal with it.
No, that's fine. You're entitled to your opinion. Just means you're wrong.
Well, I think
it really is. It's fine.
It's above the. It's higher in the lesser Marvels for me, just because in terms of the ideas, the what's the word I'm looking for? The ambition. It does try and take on too much to its detriment, but at least it's trying to do something. It's got has a few nice soundtrack songs in it, a few good performances. It has its moments, but ultimately it is just a hot mess. I don't find anything likable in her character. It's not a knock on her as an actress. It's just what the film presents, and yeah, as I said before, I do not understand who she is as a character, and I think that is just paramount to making a not just a successful film, but a film, and the film never did that. So
Yeah, well, it's a fish out of water tale when you don't actually know what type of fish she is or what water,
exactly.
what type of water she belongs in. I agree with you to a degree, only in that is the one film that when I referred to one film dropping about 3 places, that was this one. And so it's had an effect on
What if I
some
rank
of the
that
stuff.
too high now?
No, don't. But I mean, if we don't disagree somewhere, it's a rubbish show, so it's fine. I've still got it a lot higher because I'll talk about it when I get there. I certainly don't agree with things like Hot Mess, but you have been consistent through your review with we don't know this character well enough, and I think that had a definite effect on the film. I've ranked just above it. That I go, yeah, I know that character, therefore I have to put him the other way round. But it's a consistent, well-paced film, so I'm surprised to see it this low.
Yeah, I mean it's okay, but again, it's just I think it's because I watched it a second time round when we did the original after we did our review.
You couldn't even get an erection.
No,
Shocking.
it was just like for me, just like any likability of it, just kind of just faded for me. It's like actually no, this isn't working as well as it should, or like the flaws are just dragging us down.
I'll give you that. I mean, it's not sitting as well. You've got to bear in mind, I gave it a 4-star review. Now, as I said on the podcast, the moment I submitted it, I thought
that's 3-star.
I think that's a 3, and I knew it was a soft 4 anyway. But I'm happy to stand by my review because the most important thing is the words, the detail, and all of that. I read it back and go, yeah, no, I still agree with that. But it's not sitting well over time, and it's not a particularly special Marvel film, particularly given how strong Phase 3 was. So I see your point.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a bit low for me. But anyway.
Yeah. Again, preference. It's just, it's just where I stand. I mean, they'll probably. I'm assuming they're going to probably move on and they'll add to her character. I think I'm not sure if I hinted on the show before or it was after show. There was a couple of moments in this film and an endgame where I think they should. That's where they should build her character on with the kind of hey there trouble kind of thing. But
there was a moment where I just thought, yeah, that's what she's meant to be, and she was that in her film. But the trouble is, she was about 7 or 8 other things as well.
Yeah.
I think the story demanded that, and I think it's a deceptively difficult acting performance. So all the kudos in the world to Brie Larson, and that isn't just trying to counteract trolls. I mean it. I think she was great, but unfortunately, it's her first introduction, and they've almost tried to take her on almost too big an arc. In that, if you're spending the film going, she's an amnesiac here, she's sassy here, she's scared here, she's a good friend here, she's an anti-figure there, she's a sassy superhero there. You're trying to cram all of that into a 2-hour running time. You are going to get to the end and go, who is she?
Yeah, she doesn't know who she is, but yet she knows everything. She's playing everything
all these things and more.
Thing, and yeah, it's just we think about it. Doesn't a lot of it does not make sense. Like it's not a very well thought out film, and I think that's a lot of that is because they just have so many ideas, and it was
one of my big disappointments and pleasures with Endgame at the same time. That I think had she come in and kicked everyone's arse, I would have gone, well, that's fucking convenient, isn't it? They used her in the film almost at the point where you'd forgotten her. You know what I mean? But on the other hand, I was hoping to sort of see her play off other people, learn a bit more about her and all the rest of it. And of course, she's in that film for about 7 or 8 minutes in total. But there you go.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's my number 20. What's everyone else's?
I've done mine. Oh no, I haven't done mine. Becca, I've just. Well, mine's filled in, but then I thought all of mine are filled in because I wrote them.
Oh right.
So, anyway, Becca, you go first.
I'd be a bit worried if you didn't write yours.
Go on, Becca.
So my number 20 is Avengers: Age of Ultron.
What?
Oh, be prepared for the barrage of threats from the interwebs.
From who? Everyone thinks it's some bollocks. Anyway, carry on.
That's one of the things. It was, highly anticipated, but for me, it just went on a bit too long, and to have, sort of I can't remember his name. The chap who played Ultron.
James Spader.
James Spader. That was it. Yeah, I always get mixed up with another actor with a similar name. To have a really well-known actor like James Spader play
James
Ultron. that's it. Even so, but I just kind of feel he was very underused, or it kind of felt like he was very much like a panto villain style character, and
It
it's just
wasn't
a
really
waste,
an
really.
age either, was it?
No, it felt like ages.
Afternoon of
Ages.
Ultron.
Afternoon. Brunch time of
Do you know
Ultron.
what? I've not ranked it this low, but like of the two number 20s I've heard so far, Becca, I'm with you. This film is really disappointing. I'll talk about it when I
There
get
was a
there.
lot. There was a lot kind of.
Yeah, it's in
I
my
just can't.
bottom quarter.
And
Yeah.
so I was just saying, I literally like the three films I like the least. I shoved them right the way down. But with Ultron, I think there was so much hype for this film, and I just sadly didn't feel it. So I'm sorry for that one. But I ranked that as my number 20.
We'll talk about it a little bit more when I get to it. My number 20, I wanted to put bottom, but I couldn't justify it really. I wanted to put it bottom because it's this business of grading on a curve. The most disappointing experience I've had in the Marvel Cinematic Universe was 2010. Iron Man 2. I go in to see it. I mean, I can even picture where I was sat in the cinema. Now, I'm a grown man. I don't come out wanting to like lamp people and smash things up. You know what I mean? I don't get that invested, and I'm sure whatever I did that later that day, because it was during the day, I was fine and got on with other things. But at the time, it was like when you do get to the end of these films and fanboys are fucking furious, as I've seen in like a couple of films over the years, like X-Men and stuff. I remember one guy getting kicked out because he was so fucking vocally angry at the end of the film.
What, this film?
No, one of the X-Men films. He was so vocally angry at the end of the film, they kicked him out.
Oh no!
And I don't understand that, but this is probably one of the closest experiences I had to it, because Iron Man was great. Iron Man was so good. And now Marvel films are 10 a penny. They're coming along so often, and they're so good that I almost can't take the listener back to a time, if you don't remember, and most people listening will remember, to be fair, where a great superhero film was a rare thing. You know, you had the Nolan trilogy, 2/3 of which I think is good. 2/3 of which I think is very, very good, in fact, and even the other third's okay. But it had been 2 years since The Dark Knight. It had been 5 years since Batman Begins. It had been 7 years since X2. You know what I mean? You were getting 3 or 4 great ones a decade. And after Iron Man 2, the first Iron Man, we'd had Hulk, which I enjoyed at the time, actually. I didn't hate it, but time has not been kind to that film. And the following year, I think we had X-Men Origins Wolverine, you know, and stuff like that. And some of the other blockbusters that year were crap as well. You had stuff like Terminator Salvation, which we'll cover later in the year. So I went in to see Iron Man 2, and I was just so excited. And Mickey Rourke had been in The Wrestler the previous year, which had been really, really good. So I really thought...
Yeah, he won an Oscar for that, didn't he?
I mean, to be fair, there's a double standard there. He was nominated, and he was the favourite, but he didn't win it, I don't think.
No,
but
okay.
It's the last Aronofsky film that didn't make me want to vomit. But he was really good in it. Now, to be fair, there's a double standard there, because if Eon had signed him at the same time, I'd have gone stunt casting. But bear in mind, Marvel were younger. They were still building their brand, still building their universe. And Mickey Rourke briefly was hot again. I mean, that soon cooled down. But he was very good in The Wrestler. They were going to cast him in this. Then I heard Sam Rockwell was going to be in it. And Sam Rockwell is just a wonderful actor. Full stop. So I was really excited. And it finished. And I turned to the person with me and just said, that was shit. No anger, just like, that was shit. The reason it's not bottom or second bottom is we reviewed these one a week. Yes, we had some breaks, but we reviewed this right after The Incredible Hulk. And it was like someone had switched the lights on. You know, The Incredible Hulk had been dour and dark, and I don't even mean tonally dark, I mean colour palette dark and brightness. And suddenly it was like the A-listers come back. It's still downy. And I think that puts it a little bit higher. Now, Thor has Hemsworth, but Hemsworth took a while to find that character, and he plays better off the Avengers anyway. I think the full range of his talent has taken a while to sort of reveal itself, whereas Downey is Downey, and it was still that. So I was relieved after The Incredible Hulk. It's objectively better than the two films below it, therefore it goes third bottom, but I have to say the most disappointing film and my least favourite in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Iron Man 2 at number 20.
Yeah, I mean, I've that's my number 19. Straight out of that, Iron Man 2.
Oh, snap, Chris, that's my number 19 too.
Well, there
Cool.
we are.
Please, I'm doing something right.
You can right. You've been fine so far.
I'm really worried that at some point I'm just going to go off on this massive tangent.
No, everything's fine so far, Becca. Just don't panic.
If I did it right, I don't know.
If you'd like to reassure Becca, write to us and expect us to talk at gmail.com.
At the day, Becky, you just go mental and just like.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Iron Man 3 number 2, yeah.
If it doesn't matter at the end of the day.
No, I haven't done that, it's fine.
At the end of the day, it's just opinion and it just films. I mean, it's not fucking the end of the world, is it? I mean,
to be honest, when you went to give us where you put Star Trek Into Darkness, I thought you were going to have a nervous breakdown during that episode. I'm so sorry! You put it about 9th or something and nearly shit yourself with fear. It's fine. Anyway, what do you both have to say about Iron Man 2?
Becca?
I liked Iron Man 3 more. That's what I got to say. It's one of those things.
Spoiler alert to what's next on the list.
Spoiler alert. There's a film in between that.
Oh, right.
But I feel a bit bad for ranking it there. But so I'm not a big fan of the Iron Man franchise. Having said that, skip ahead to many points where I rank Iron Man quite highly. But no, it's for similar reasons to you, Dave. Really, having an actor of that caliber, and with the playing like the central villain, he was very much kind of flavour of the month. I think prior to doing the rest, obviously his career had been taking a nosedive, so that kind of brought him back onto the world stage. You kind of see what a life of hard living and hard drinking is sort of taking a toll on him. So that kind of it really needed that kind of pick me up, as it were. And again, it's similar to Ultron, like having a personality of that stature in a film, only for it to kind of go to waste. It's just a real shame. And it was kind of built up like around him, really. But yeah, again, kind of anticipation was high. It just didn't quite meet those expectations, unfortunately. So that's my reason why I put it at my number 19.
Yeah, I mean, Dave has a point, the fact that he's a dick in this film, and it's hard to kind of go with him. I suppose that's partly the point, because he is a troubled figure. But I think one of the reasons why it's higher on the bad, the less of Marvel films for me, is just because it does have something. It does add texture to the universe. It doesn't execute them as well as it should do, but you do have Joey Shanley in there, so yeah. Enough said. But
okay,
yeah.
well, I'm the only 19 not to be done yet. Doctor Strange at number 19 for me. I don't get on with this film. It's as simple as that. I don't feel that strongly about it, to be honest. Cumberbatch's accent is a problem. Now, I've got a bit more used to it now as he keeps appearing. I mean, if somebody does something ridiculous enough times, it starts to seem normal. Let's see how we get on.
Maybe you should start in a Marvel film with Martin Freeman.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Doctor Strange. I don't know. Yeah. His accent
and they can make a Sherlock Holmes gag as well. Yeah.
I mean, I'd have to work. I don't think I'm particularly good at voices, but I'd have to work hard to do one that bad. But I mean, the Doctor Strange character is one of there's a handful in the Marvel Cinematic Universe like this where their skill set's not that well defined to the viewer. Now, if you know comics very well, or you're just frankly a bit smarter than us, maybe you picked it up. But it just seemed to me that every time he approached something difficult, he just waved his hands around a bit. And I just think, as a skill set, that's really fucking boring. Visually, it's quite boring as well. Just make some hieroglyphs with your hands.
He's the Avenger from the Mystic Arts, isn't he?
Yeah, and much like Iron Man 2, the lead's a dick for so much of the film that it's like, well, I can see you're on an arc. I can see it's a redemption arc. But you're still asking me to follow someone who's an asshole for 75 minutes or whatever it might be. I don't get on with it. I don't like it, frankly. And that's really all I'm going to say about it for now. Maybe we'll revisit it when you guys get to it. But number 19, Doctor Strange.
Okay, so... so my next on the list... I'm just trying to count, right? Yeah.
You're at number 18 now.
I'm at number 18. My number 18 is Age of Ultron. Films start to get a bit better, but yeah, this one's quite disappointing for a Marvel film. But I think what levelates this up more than anything else, it does have some really nice character moments, and it is quite an important one in the grand scheme of things, a la Tony, and what that means in relationship to the rest of the Avengers. So it's not without its merits, but sadly, it could have been more fun, or could have had more weight behind it. Yeah, so it's hard to really know what went wrong here. Maybe Joss Whedon just overstressed himself. Maybe too many studio interference. I don't know, but yeah, no,
it definitely bears a few hallmarks of that, and there's a little bit of Iron Man 2 syndrome as well. That I rewatched it the other day, and it's not good. It really isn't. But you followed the Avengers with this. I know you followed it with lots of other films as well, but basically the Avengers films, there was the Avengers, and then there was this, and you just go, how can one man collapse that quickly? He looked tired, he looked disinterested, and I'll say a bit more in a minute because my ranking of this isn't that far away, but yeah, it's not great.
Yeah, so where are we on, number 18?
Yeah, I'll go next because I've definitely got this lowest of the three of us. I put at number 18 Thor. I don't like this film either. Now,
Fair enough.
Chris Hemsworth has grown on me to the point that I think people are going to start thinking I fancy him in a minute because I'm talking this guy up rather a lot and I want him to be James Bond and stuff. But the guy can do almost everything. He's really good at comedy. He's really good at serious. He's a great physical actor. He can do most things, albeit fairly light genre cinema, but he can do everything that's required within that. Unfortunately, the character's got a stick up his arse during this film, which is kind of understandable because, again, it's a fish out of water story. Elements of it, I could see why you might rank this above a Captain Marvel, but I think that's just a more competent film. This is embarrassingly cheap. I mean, they can't help the budget they've got, but well, I suppose they could. They could just get a bigger budget. But Phase One,
need a bigger budget.
Well, I suppose they do design their own budgets. But the fact is, in Phase One, they all got similar amounts of money.
Well, you didn't know it was going to take off the way it did.
Well, you're 3 years in by this point. Iron Man has taken over $500 million.
Yeah, they're going to have an
Iron
idea
Man
of where it's
2
going.
has taken more again, but it is still an introduction. But that little town they had for it was embarrassing. And in fact, I would have been more understanding if they've hidden its scale. But at one point, Branagh did a full-scale shot of the whole town, and you could barely fit a couple hundred people there. I'm convinced it's embarrassing. There's a bit of sort of what I know of the people, or think I know of the people playing on it as well, because he got better as they went on. But at this point, Anthony Hopkins phoned it in. I think in later ones actually made a bit more effort, but at this stage he phoned it in. You got Natalie Portman there.
But you're not King.
Nat King. Yeah.
Nat King.
I don't know what that was. Hey.
Hey. That's Hopkins acting.
That's Hopkins acting.
I don't know.
Your birthright was to die.
He acts the way James Brown sings.
He does.
Hey. Right now,
we expect him to do his Tommy Cooper impression.
Natalie Portman really ought to go off and just do pretentious twaddle with fucking Darren Aronofsky for a living. It almost pissed me off. I mean, contractually, I imagine she was. I mean, she even got an on-screen credit and a visage over the credits of Endgame, and I just thought that's an insult. This is a woman who never wanted to be there, and frankly acted like she never wanted to be there. And it was, you had people like Stellan Skarsgård and Kat Dennings making a lot more effort around her, which not only which showed her up, but also rescued some of the scenes she was in. Frankly,
she did look at Thor as if it was really good, hungry to fuck out.
Wanting to get boned by Chris Hemsworth doesn't count. She could have just called him up and arranged that. She didn't need to waste our time. Little things like they dyed his eyebrows and stuff like that, and it just looks silly. Ken Branagh, I can see why they've hired him to direct. But it's all silly fucking Dutch angles, though. I mean, really overdone to the point of comedy. When he's having conversations with the warriors, it's like bad Shakespeare. It's just like bad Shakespeare. It doesn't play at all. And I look even Asgard, and by the Dark World, they replaced the sky in Asgard and made it look a bit better. It just looks cheap, the whole thing, and I can't get past it. So I can't rank Thor any higher. It is absolutely I think now, almost take Iron Man 2 out of the equation because they were. I mean, Iron Man 2 was a sequel because they were trying to sort of make some more money, frankly. And The Incredible Hulk almost doesn't count in that, like, we've never thought about it since. But if you take all the films in the first phase that have sort of endured in any way, yeah, Thor's my least favourite by a distance.
Becca?
Oh dear. I'm looking at my next couple
You
of
don't
films.
have to apologise for
I
every
mean, do I
choice.
change them? Do I change them?
No. Own it, Becca. Own it.
No.
Okay, at number 18, Octopussy. Depends. If you've written down the wrong films, then change it. If you've written down Marvel films, leave it.
Oh, I've at number 18, I got Star Trek 6. Imagine if we ranked like all the films we've done so far. That would be a massive headache for me. I don't think I'd be able to cope with that one.
Given we're at 146 episodes, yes.
Yeah, I'd be like, bloody hell no. Okay, so I'm a little bit special. We said at the top of the show, make sure you got 22 films. Yep, I did. And then I sort of checked them all off, and I was like, I've got one missing. What is it? It was Captain America: The First Avenger. I just shoved it in. I actually had one
You
gap.
had to find a place for it.
And this is where it's gone. But now I kind of think, because, okay, spoiler alert, I've got Iron Man 3 at number 17, and I kind of think, oh, do I swap them around? Because I'm kind of getting into the high levels.
Well, talk about them both, because we've got to do the 17s next anyway. So if you want to talk about both films and then confirm what order you want them in when you finished.
I think I'll probably switch them around anyway.
Okay,
as I
so
say, yeah, I enjoyed...
number 18, you have got Iron Man 3. Let's talk about that first.
So I enjoyed it more than Iron Man 2. I don't know, because it's one of those films, I know obviously Iron Man is a huge, iconic character, and much with Hugh Jackman, you know, after appearing in several Aussie soaps, making his money playing Wolverine for the last decade. So Robert Downey Jr. has done the same. And, you know, it's really important for his career. You know, he'd had so much difficulty with, you know, with leading quite a difficult life, for substance abuse and what have you. You know, he's one of those kind of really, really talented actors that you see once in a generation. And he just suffered burnout, unfortunately. And I think I totally agree that Iron Man really, you know, brought him back onto the world stage, and just it saved it. Basically, the role saved his life, pretty much. And he's forged like his own James Bond, for example. Totally brought him back in, you know, into the central arena, and proved, you know, he is an acting icon. Having said that,
I was going to say, that being said, why is the film shit?
That being said, I don't know why, but he's like one of my least favourite of all the Avengers characters. I don't know why.
Well, that's a shame, seeing he's the most popular and the most
it is
in most of them.
No, but for some reason, sadly, it's one of my least favourite of the series. I don't know why. I know he's a hugely popular character, but for me, it's all about the actor. So I kind of, there are other characters that I warm to.
I can respect the actor count to the character.
Definitely, you know, can definitely see, you know, what it's done for his career and the difficult life that he's led. He's had sort of, you know, difficult issues like psychologically as well. He's, you know, he's a genius. I'm sort of convinced that if you have some kind of, you know, sort of genius spark, you know, you're going to suffer unfortunately for your art. For me, like, the two go hand in hand together. Might not always be the case, but that's just, and the character has basically kind of, you know, saved his life and saved his career. That's just my impression of it anyway. Yeah, for some reason there are other characters that I warm to more. I don't know why, but, you know, I do have great respect. Obviously, great respect for Marvel, great respect, obviously for Stanley, so, you know, for creating the character as well. But yeah, I don't know why, unfortunately.
When you say you warm to characters more, might one of those characters, for example, be Captain America in a film such as Captain America: The First Avenger, Becca?
Yes. But again, yes, because it's the first film in the series. But he's kind of like the Marvel version of Superman. He's quite bland. He's very much for traditional American values.
The critics rave!
The critics rave, definitely. But no, he's very much for, you know, like jingoistic, obviously, because his characters from the 30s, 40s and 50s, definitely kind of wartime era. A little bit more jingoistic, I would say. Very patriotic. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, it is.
I don't really want to say that it's not a bad thing at all. It's very, it's very important to do that.
Having a wank about where you happen to be born as a like complete
You can do it
accident
without
and random
being
act of chance
nationalistic, if
is
that makes
odd.
sense.
Yeah.
So there's kind of, you can kind of be
You shouldn't be
patriotic.
ashamed of where you were born. I don't have a problem with like fighting for your country and representing
exactly.
your country. I never understand proud to be and whatever that nation is. Like if I was born 100 miles north, I'd be Welsh, and if I was born 100 miles south, I'd be French.
Well, there we are.
Or what
You're
is it?
smack in the middle.
It's just complete fucking like accident where I was born, to be honest. But there you go.
But
Anyway.
it's not to say that because I've ranked First Avenger at this position, it's not to say I don't dislike it. I'll say it's the first film, introduces us to the character. It's really interesting, but for me, Superman is iconic, really iconic characters. Can't take that away, and really important to this Marvel series. But for me, yeah, he's just there isn't. I don't know. He's the result of a scientific experiment, as was Hulk, as well as many other characters in this universe. But at the same time, I think, yeah, for me, he is pretty much Superman. Like he's quite planned. There's not much to him, but it's quite a simple, straightforward tale. But I say it's a really good film, solid film. I love the kind of the wartime setting, costumes, makeup. You've got Peggy, Agent Carter in there as well, and I really enjoyed the TV series. And you've got all that lovely wartime era stuff as well. I think I did a really good job there. But yeah, for me, I rank the sequel a bit higher, just purely because of its themes and ideas expressed. But I had to stick this one somewhere. That's the one I had left over. In it goes.
Well, I just stuck it in the bin after I first saw it.
In it goes. There we are. It's got a home. It's okay.
I've been on a bit of a journey with that film, but so you're not going to see it for a while for me. But I didn't like it to start with. I really struggled with it, but I'll talk more about that in a while. What have you got at 17, Chris?
Well, from here on in, this is where I start to hit my mid-tier range, and so any of these films now I don't think are particularly bad. I think they are quite good.
I'm still a couple away from that. Go on.
But I was quite surprised just how low I've ranked this considerably, and it's with no ill will towards it, but it's Ant-Man and the Wasp. I think it's largely just down to the fact that it's just so light, that it doesn't have much weight, even though I appreciate the film as itself, and and we needed like a little bit of a break.
It would have been better if like Ken Loach had directed it. And like Ant-Man's benefits got cut off.
Yeah. And it was a howling.
You could make that film over here, could you?
And it was a howling socially commentary. Yeah, no, it was just. I think it was just a bit of a light touch of a Marvel film that didn't really sort of linger in my subconscious. So other films sort of stayed in the memory a lot more.
And we were reviewing it right in the midst of all those sort of Avengers films and Black Panther and so on. So yeah, in fact, if we were doing this in a year's time, for example, Captain Marvel would have followed it, but obviously we tried to fit with Captain Marvel's release, so we'd recorded that weeks before. So you did literally do like Infinity War, then Black Panther.
Yeah.
Black Panther, Infinity War, and then Endgame.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And it's going to stand out as there's not much to this, is there?
Yeah. So, and again, it's like it's not with any real will. I can understand why it'd be higher on other people's lists. It just kind of came to ranking them. It just kind of where it fell. And I thought, yeah, okay. But I almost do it with a heavy heart because I don't have any ill will towards it.
Yeah, well, I'm still in the ill will stage of my rankings. So I'm quite happy to say Avengers: Age of Ultron is at 17 for me. One of the most disappointing films in the entire series because of what it followed. It is exactly the same sort of syndrome as going to see an Iron Man sequel that lets you down. All right, objectively, some of the other things might be worse, but this looked like a director that didn't want to be there. The action beats were getting repetitive. This punching people behind you that you're not even looking at sort of thing, and Clint does it with the sort of bow and arrow as well, fires at people he's not looking at and stuff like that. Getting tired by now. The Ultron character is really crap. all right, I like James Spader, but the character in the film is rubbish. Vision, introduced out of nowhere and then just being wildly overpowered. Took Wanda a while to find her voice, literally, because the accent's terrible. I hated this universe's version of Quicksilver. You're not supposed to like inwardly cheer when one of the heroes dies. The film's not doing it if you're delighted. He died, and I was like, oh, thank fuck for that. Even the motivational speech from Barton, if you go out there, you are an Avenger. It all fell so flat. You've got Thor sequences, where he's getting visions that don't really play into anything as it goes on. The film is just an overstuffed mess. It is what I thought the first Avengers would have been. When they said they were going to do a team up, I thought that's going to be a disjointed, stuffed up mess. And it wasn't, but Age of Ultron was, and trying to explain, I think at this point, it might be this film where he says him and Pepper are on a break. And stuff like that. And it's stuff like that. You haven't got time to explain anything. So there's lots of throwaway character bits. And I was quite worried after this. I thought, is this what the universe is going to be from now on? All those films where we had proper character development, like proper standalone Iron Man films and stuff. And now it's just going to be like one throwaway line to tell us what's happened in the year since we last saw you. And that's it. We don't even know where you live now and stuff like that. I'm assuming in that Avengers Tower, but you don't know. I didn't like this film. We are still at the stage of I don't like these films. So Avengers Age of Ultron at 17.
So yeah, number 16, I have Doctor Strange. Not a 22B. But yeah, no, I totally agree. Where you guys are coming from. He's a bit like Captain Marvel, bit of an unknown quantity. For me as well, I've said on the podcast I wasn't that familiar with the character. I think having Mads Mikkelsen, and for me that was the main draw. Obviously, Cumberbatch is a draw at any time of the day, but having Mads Mikkelsen as well. But I feel like, with Ultron, is almost something kind of like you've got a really, a star quality actor. The Chief, and obviously Hannibal a few years ago. Very underwhelming here, definitely.
I forget he's in it.
I was like, I didn't. At first, with all the makeup, I didn't realise.
Well, no, it's not that. It looks like him. I just forget he's in it.
Yeah, that's it. He totally blends into the role.
We're talking about it, and you went Mads Mikkelsen. Oh yeah, he was the villain.
So, yeah, for what he was in, definitely. He sort of becomes his role, doesn't he? Really, kind of one with the character. No, it's
nothing to do with disappearing into a role. It's to do with his role being fucking bland.
Well, exactly. He tries it, but it doesn't really work.
It's the Malekith effect, isn't it? Of you just get given like a role which is like he kind of.
But so what?
Yeah.
Again, yeah, I think, and also the mysticism aspect is really interesting. But I think it was also quite densely plotted. And to sort of anyone who's a fan of the character who's read the comics will love it or eat it up. But I think as a newcomer, I found it a bit difficult to get into. I had to kind of find my own way in. But that's But effects, visuals, fantastic. The costumes, the visuals. Cumberbatch is a big win for me, so that was like my main three takeaways from that, and that was kind of like my main draw for the film. But that's why I put it on my number 16, rank it slightly higher than you guys.
Okay, my number 16 then, Iron Man 3. We're still, this is the last quote unquote bad film in the list, I'd say, but it's also, I'm starting to get a kernel of respect now for what's being done. Iron Man 3 tried to do something different. I'll be very interested when we cover Lethal Weapon in the next year or so, because I think it's good as I remember. Do you know what I mean? Because I haven't liked a lot of Shane Black stuff. I really haven't. I think, because he gets people talking to each other vaguely humorously, it's like, what a great writer. And it's like, I don't see it. This stupid fucking Christmas obsession as well. This constant Christmas bollocks. I just grow up. But they tried to do something different. It doesn't entirely work in that I think they completely cheapen the whole concept of the Iron Man armor. It's a bit like at the end of Into Darkness where they like cured death, and you think you've got no choice but to ignore that, otherwise you've ruined the universe. And it's the same here. They've cured the need for Tony to be in the armor at all. So why would he ever be? Why would he? At the end of Endgame, he could have just had his fucking avatar, he could have been sat somewhere else and survived it. So you've got to ignore it. They had too many suits. The suits have no cohesive style guide to them at all. You got marks there that look totally different. At the end, they're trying to save the president. We've never met the president. Who gives a shit? Maybe Americans do. Maybe they've got enough sort of in normal times when they don't have a lunatic in the White House. They might have enough. What am I saying? Enough respect for the office of the president that the very fact the president's in danger gives it stakes. Well, we're British. We don't have that. All right, I know who William Sadler is, but I don't care.
Yeah, but if you have you have like shows that put the prime minister in danger and things like that, it's the same sort of thing. It's like
and they don't normally work because I don't care. You look at stuff like Olympus Has Fallen. All right, we all like Aaron Eckhart and stuff, but you could have fucking immolated his president. I wouldn't have given a shit. And it's the same here. Like, can we save the president? I don't care. But at least they tried to do something different. We had more of Tony outside of the suit. I thought the whole Mandarin thing was brilliant. If you're a big fan of the comics, there's nothing wrong with that, but at least accept it's a different continuity. I've never bought the argument Marvel fucked that up. They are Marvel. You may not like what they've just done there, but they're Marvel. It's as canon a universe as any of the comic book versions. And if they want to do it that way, let them. I was a bit let down by Mike from Neighbours. I thought he was really poor.
Oh yeah, Mike from Neighbours.
Well, he was so good in his first scene when he was like all damaged and stuff. I thought he's going to be great, and then he played very one-dimensional, oily. I walked out of this the first time a little bit relieved that it wasn't Iron Man 2 bad, but it's not sat with me very well over the years, and I've no desire to watch it particularly. And when you consider how good Iron Man was, I'm now at the point I'm relieved they never made any more Iron Man films, and that's the ultimate slam against this film. But it's the last poor-ish film on the list, and at least they're trying to do something different here.
Okay.
What's your 16, Chris?
My 16, again, it's another former best Marvel film to date. It's Thor Ragnarok. Largely just down
I knew you were going to say that as soon as you said
it's coming.
Marvel film. Yeah.
It's very entertaining.
I thought it was controversial where I ranked it.
I think it's a very fun, entertaining film, but everything is just all set up for jokes, and I think the complete missed opportunity to be anything more than that is just completely just thrown out the window. I think it's the idea of Asgard getting destroyed and Thor like sort of having to save like the remainder of his people after it's like his older sister just like kills half the population and shit isn't really a setup for a joke. So it's while I do appreciate it, it is fun. Chris Hemsworth's great in it as always. It's very colourful. It just comes across as a bit very throwaway.
The visual language of it is, and everyone said what a great job Taika Waititi did. And I see their point, and I'm glad he's in it for Korg. I'm glad he's involved for Korg, if nothing else. But he signposts every joke as well. Mm. Every time the camera went wide, I thought joke. And it was. Every single time. You could almost read the list of sort of camera instructions and go, the joke's going to be there. Yeah. When they cut to that shot, that's where the joke's going to be. And it started getting on my tits, to be honest. I've got it ranked a lot higher than you, and I'm going to say some nice things about it. But there are people who have Thor Ragnarok like top 3. And I just think, well, if you enjoy it that much, I can understand, because it is a shed load of fun. And Hemsworth has really found the take he wants to do. It's a bit like Daniel Craig is the first Bond in years that's been able to do like his take on it, and he's, it's almost like he's gone, no, I'm playing it like this, and I want the scripts to fit me doing it like this. And it's almost like Hemsworth took 3 goes for them to go, all right, Chris, let's do it your way. So I think it's a very entertaining film. I can't argue with any kind of objectivity. It's particularly good, though.
Yeah, I think how I kind of my discrepancies, particularly with like say Captain Marvel, are more like what's to do with like the singular larger issue, as opposed to like all the other aspects that people tend to like. So with Captain Marvel, it's all just down to like, well, you didn't even set up a character right. With this, it's like, well, you've kind of you've just only thought about it's just for an entertainment value. You haven't thought about anything deeper. You know what I mean?
I know. Every scene could have finished with da 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 da.
You know what I mean? So, well, as I say, this sounds like I probably hate it more than I do. I don't. I just think
it's really enjoyable.
I just see that's more as a loss of opportunity. If this was like a bonus 4th film, I wouldn't have minded, because then it would have been like, yeah, whatever. You done your trilogy. You can just let loose and have fun with the next one. Yeah. But
I mean, if they want Waititi back and they want to do more as well, then great. But
I mean,
stop signposting jokes, and not everything has to be a setup for a joke.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is, I really do like the first 4 film, but okay, the budget could have been bigger, and you could have built from that. There was there was something there, and the second film was meh. And this was just jokey joke. And it was just like, and plus on top of that, you're riffing on what the Guardians of the Galaxy have already done anyway. So
it was trying too hard to be Guardians. That was my biggest problem with it, actually. But when you rewatch all the films together, it is absurdly comedic, far more than Guardians.
Yeah.
But
right. Chris Evans is great at comedy, so there you go.
Yeah. Number 15s. I'm on a run of 4 now that I wasn't sure what order to put them in. And in some respects, I've put the one I like least highest. But we'll explain as we go through them. My number 15 is Ant-Man. Funny enough, you've both named... No, you haven't. Becca hasn't yet. But certainly Chris has named its sequel first. Maybe I'll talk more during the sequel when I come to that as to why I've got it higher. But there's not much between them. They're both such light confections that they're kind of a bit interchangeable. I think with the first Ant-Man film, on paper I should like it more because it's got a heist structure, and heist films tend to be fun. But I didn't find the heist that entertaining, to be honest. And I thought the villain was weak. I like the actor, but the actual Aaron... I said Aaron Cross during the review. Aaron Cross was actually Jeremy Renner's character in The Bourne Legacy. It's Darren Cross. But Darren Cross is a fairly weak character. Can't put much between them, but we're now into films that I enjoy. They're not necessarily standout great films, but Ant-Man was perfectly entertaining. I slightly prefer its sequel, but yeah, at number 15, Ant-Man.
Becca?
I wonder, it's another one of those, if I should swap them around a little bit. So number 15, I've got Ant-Man and the Wasp, randomly. But no, it's one of those films, I think Ant-Man and its sequel are 2 of those films. It's a bit of, as you say, it's like confection, but the films of that kind of period, have been quite heavy, quite serious. And this is just what you need: a breath of fresh air, a bit of comedy, a comedic heist element as well. And they kind of got the way that it's not be like Marvel movies, but the heist movies. So you can keep them, you can also keep them separate without, moving them too much into the MCU. But as I say, I really enjoyed it at the time. A little bit more for its comedy, and also it really shows off San Francisco as a character within its own right. Fond memories of going there. But I did enjoy this film, but I had to put it at number 15.
That's fine. Okay.
But I enjoyed other films more.
So that's Ant-Man and the Wasp at number 15 for you, and Ant-Man for me. Okay, Chris?
Yeah, I'm not far behind you.
No.
So, so my next on the list is Ant-Man. So, yeah.
Okay. You guys are in agreement?
Yeah, although he's ranked his sequel lower, but like I say, not much between them. I can't really argue. They're broadly similar.
Just because it's kind of so, but I prefer this one just because I really like the family dynamic in this film and how it ends. I think that had a really nice message to it. It's quite it's more inventive than the sequel, I think, and yeah, I think it's just a, while it's a light, it's fun, but has a few more interesting things to say above her. So that's why I ranked Ant-Man.
Okay, well, I put its sequel at number 14. To yeah, there isn't much between them. I had to think about it. Like I say, we're at a run of 4 films I kind of agonised about. Now, Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp, in all but one take of these rankings, were right next to each other. I did briefly put something between them, but there isn't anything between them, really. If I had to say why do I like the sequel, plot-wise, it's probably weaker. The whole wasting of Michelle Pfeiffer's a real shame. But I think it's the Ghost is a lot more interesting than Darren Cross.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I love the daddy-daughter stuff. And that's an incredible thing for me to say because my teeth itch at kids in films. Kids in life, great. I really like children. I tend to get on very well with children and so on. But in film, no. It gets on my tits 9 times out of 10. But the little girl's really good to the degree that when we got to Endgame...
Master Anakin, what are we going to do?
Master Anakin, there are too many of them. What are we going to do? Yes, brilliant.
It was a little bit like that.
Yeah, but she's really, really good to the point that when she aged out in Endgame, I'm like, oh, because I wanted the little girl back. So
she was lovely.
They had a great chemistry. I haven't said that, but Paul Rudd's got a great chemistry with anybody. So I think when it's a 16-year-old next time round or an 18-year-old, that'll be fine too. And in fact,
wouldn't have aged another year as well. He'll still look the same.
Paul Rudd might have aged 4 or 5 minutes by then, so watch out.
You wouldn't know it. He still looks the same.
He might have gained a wrinkle.
Yeah, a grey hair.
Yeah, and if we're lucky, it'll be on his face so we can see it. So,
it'll be on his knee.
Ant-Man and the Wasp is marginally the better film on interpersonal dynamics more than anything else. The first film's actually got a slightly tighter structure, but yeah, I think I slightly prefer that. I think the action set, I prefer the sort of downtown San Francisco set piece over the heist from the from the first film, rather. Prefer the villain, like the daddy-daughter stuff. So yeah, Mard gets the nod for me, but not by a lot. And certainly wouldn't debate them being put the other way round. That was my number 14.
At number 14, I have Thor.
Okay.
I quite enjoyed it. No, I think, as we know, Chris Hemsworth is...
Chris likes it so much he's got it at -1.
He's got it at minus 14.
Yeah.
He's got it so far down the bottom you can't see it.
Okay, why have you got it this high stroke this low? Because it's not that high still.
It's in the middle. You're kind of entering that middle, the middle of the list.
Yeah.
I won't do the thing from The Meaning of Life because that's slightly racist. But despite everything that we've seen of Chris Hemsworth before, certainly his character Thor has an arc, but he's meant to be a god and he's meant to be sort of the rightful king of Asgard. But I think to a certain extent you are right, Dave, that he does play it with a stick up his ass. And yeah, looking back on it now, the effects aren't up there, and you kind of really notice, especially on the Blu-ray, you notice the dyed eyebrows, which does look a little bit silly. But his character grows, evolves, even where he ends up in Endgame as well. You've kind of got that complete arc. He sort of talks about what he should be. What he wants to be, what he should be, rather than what he's expected to be, and following his own trajectory. But no, so I really enjoyed this film. Again, we get to see more, perhaps not as much as I'd like, of Loki as well. Great character, and hugely popular with the ladies, very important. But no, I quite enjoyed this film. Chris Hemsworth was a massive draw, so that's probably why I put it as high as number 14.
So, Chris Hemsworth's massive draws.
Yeah.
I may have misheard slightly. Chris, you're number 14.
Well,
Chris,
mine...
massive draws.
That Denning's massive draw.
Well,
massive draw for you.
You'd be pleased to know, both of you, that next one is Iron Man 3.
3.
This was like one of my favourite. Well, I suppose is probably one of my favourite ones in the early days. But when it was out, I think
when they were only 7 films, I liked it top 7.
Yeah, but I think it's a lot of it because it changed back. It had very much like a Lethal Weapon kind of action movie vibe. I like the twists. I like its mischievous nature. I didn't get the whole, it was supposed to be Iron Man. He's barely in the suit argument. I just thought just get over yourself.
I didn't mind him not being in the suit.
Yeah.
I did mind the suit being so fucking good without him.
No, but that was the
but the bit where he has to get into where he meets Trevor and he's having to
Yeah.
improvised as Tony Stark. I liked.
Yeah, no, it was the arguments I heard at the time, which was basically just whining the fact that this is what at the time of cinema release that he wasn't in the suit, so it's like how's it supposed to be Iron Man when he spent majority of the film outside the suit? I thought anyway, but it wasn't the fact that just undermines that, like you were saying anyway. Yeah, but I think over time it's kind of just I don't think it stayed with me as much as I thought it would, and some of it is a bit conventional, some of it is a bit lame, but I still had a good time with it. It's still, I still enjoyed the surprises. I think Downey's having fun working with Shane Black, and so that's my number 14. Are we still on 14? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
we've all done
another one
14
to go.
now.
yeah. So just basically sort of like, I think it's just. It just lowered in terms of memory for me. It was just like, yeah, okay, it wasn't that as good as I remember, but hey ho. So are we on number 13 now?
Yeah, go on, take it away, Chris. What have you got next?
I have Doctor Strange.
It's got a fucking nosebleed being all the way up here.
As I say, we're very splitting hairs at this.
I'll admit, I mean, obviously you're going to justify your choice now. I will say at the outset I'm a little bit surprised because your review wasn't that positive. I think I was harsher on it than you.
Yeah. I'm
definitely in review. We were all going, this ain't very good.
I'm kind of splitting hairs with these rankings. I can kind of go, oh, okay. I think I'd probably, on reflection, enjoy it more. I think I enjoyed the new seeing the new characters introduced to a new world. It had interesting visuals, bland villain of course, but hey, it's not many Marvel films that don't have one. So I think it's just a bit of a waste of Mads Mikkelsen, sadly, but I do enjoy the arc. The bad house accent doesn't bother me that much, and I guess we'll see. I think we'll probably have a better sequel, but then again, I thought that about before. So, so there we are.
Yeah. At least there is precedent for better sequels. I mean, you look at some of the early films, then Iron Man got a worse sequel, and Thor got a arguably worse sequel, but there are certainly films we'll get to where there's one film at least where the sequel's inarguably better, but we'll get to it. Becca, you're 13.
I'm looking for some. My number 13, I have Ant-Man.
Okay.
As for reasons that I mentioned before. It's kind of
in a Thor sandwich.
In a Thor sandwich. Who likes a Thor sandwich? I do. Anyway, I just felt really shallow, but never mind. No, Ant-Man. I would say I really enjoyed. The
Thor in
Wasp
brief
sequel
sandwich.
as well.
Sorry, Becca, go on.
We can have a Kat Dennings and a Kat Dennings sandwich. Okay, maybe not then.
I'm sorry, I think Dave just come.
Big sigh.
Hang on, I'll be right.
Okay, it's
Excuse us, this is what David just pops off for a wank.
That is horribly, horribly rude. I'm going to clean myself up after the wank I've just had.
I'll be stuck to a seat.
If you're going to slow me, get the details fucking accurate. Carry on there. So, Ant-Man at number 13, Becca. Tell us about that.
Ant-Man. This show's going to be slapped with a big 18 certificate. But again, as I say, is the comedy element. I know after films that are quite heavy and quite serious. But this has got quite interesting production history as well. I'm still sad that Edgar Wright wasn't attached. I'd be very interested to see his take on the film. He's a big fan of the comics and of the character, which is a great shame. But no, I really enjoyed it.
For Kevin Spacey fans.
Maybe not. We'll avoid that.
Just dropped on Netflix today.
Oh God, avoid.
What's dropped on Netflix?
Baby Driver.
Oh yes.
It's one
Which
of
is a
those, actually,
film
I bought that. Unfortunately, I bought it on Blu-ray, like just when all that was coming out, and I was like, I kind of regret buying this.
I get that. I mean, yeah, all right. I can understand. Like, I wouldn't have bought it if I'd known, but still watch it and just have your flesh crawl every time he appears.
Yeah, just look away, look away.
He's a bit. There's something a bit smart. There's something a bit sex offender about him in it anyway. The way he looks in that film. So yeah,
He plays quite a slimy character.
yeah.
So no, with that man, generally, I had a good time with it. It was quite funny, and it, it's a nice breath of fresh air, a nice kind of change from the norm, I think.
Yeah.
And again, it's even one of those characters that I sadly didn't know a lot of, and like when it came out, I thought, man, really? Actually, I don't mean to be rude to any of fans of the characters, but having Paul Rudd in the role really helped with that one. Kind of made him, he's the everyman, I think.
The chain of cinemas?
Yes, the art house cinemas across London.
Great.
I want to discuss that film at the Everyman,
All right.
You know what?
Okay.
I've not been to an Everyman yet.
There's one in Liverpool.
Yeah,
I don't think I have actually either.
There's one just near me, and it's a quite small one, but all the screens are small, like with couches. So,
if we ever meet up, obviously I've met Dave, but should the three of us ever get together, let's go.
All right then. Okay. So anyway, I noticed your latest episode got an 18. Why was that? Kevin Spacey and Dave had a wank.
And the dodgy language.
At number 13, I've got Captain Marvel. This is one of those that, at this stage of the game, now there's only 10 slots in the top 10, of course. But
No.
spiritually, if you like, Marvel should be making nothing but top 10 films at the moment, if you like. This was a disappointment on reflection. I enjoyed it just fine at the time. I tried not to overcompensate for the trolling, because I think with the trolling, you want to go in and really love it. Because, like, you fucking assholes, do you know what I mean? You really want to be like that about it. It's probably the most typical Marvel film on the list, really. If someone said, what's a Marvel film like? You could just hand them this and go, that's exactly what a Marvel film's like. Some of the dialogue's a bit stilted. I think it's one of the worst examples of what Marvel do when they don't quite get it right. The characters talk at each other rather than with each other. And she's really, really good. And I think she's really good because it's a deceptively difficult role. But the problem is the film is limited for the reasons that it's a very difficult role. That she starts off and she's kind of a slightly sassy kind of apprentice, and then she's a slightly chastened apprentice, or the other way around, whichever it happens to be, and then she's an amnesiac, and then she's a fish out of water, and then she's a friend, an ant figure, and then she's like the balls to the wall sort of superhero, which I thought she carried with real aplomb. She's got quite a bit of sass about her in that role. It's a very typical Marvel film. It's a very good Marvel film. I think it's got I don't have third act problems here particularly, even though it is, an overpowered superhero smashes everything up. But I just felt a certain joy as she discovered her powers, probably because of that slight sort of oppression motif to the film. That, it's almost like a slave breaking their chains, almost literally, because she was kind of tied up at that point. So I like it. But it's not special. We don't know the characters very well, and I wanted to put it above the film that comes next because it's a much more consistent film than the film I've put next, which I'll go straight on to actually because we've covered all of our 13s. It's a more consistent film, but the film I'm going to come to next has more heart, and I knew the character better at the end of that film than I do here. So I'm a little bit disappointed to have to put it this low. I couldn't, with no disrespect meant to Chris, because I don't think I've heard anything in his rankings that I think is truly shocking, but I couldn't really put it a lot lower than this. I can't imagine putting it bottom 3 or 4, to be honest, but it's below halfway, and at this stage, that's a disappointment, particularly when you think at number 12 I've got Captain America the First Avenger. Now, the First Avenger was my least favourite Marvel film for a good period of time. It hadn't been the disappointment Iron Man 2 was, because I didn't have any expectations, but I was bored. By the time they got to the point where Bucky fell from the train, or whatever it was that happened, I was bored. I wasn't interested at all. The problem with Captain America the First Avenger, and why I've almost over-ranked it here, is that it's only interesting when he's little Steve. When he's before he takes the serum, and you discover the true heart and soul of the man. And he is Marvel's Superman. I think quite often when we look at them, we look at their we try and line DC and Marvel up by their skill set or social status. But actually, if you line them up on character and heart, he is, this universe is Kal-El, I suppose. But real heart to the man, real heart to the performance. Some lovely CG work, actually. A lot of people have picked fault in it, but for the budget they had, they sort of slimmed him down really well. He has lovely chemistry with Hayley Atwell. I would love to have an opportunity to prove I've got lovely chemistry with Hayley Atwell as well. But I have to say, half of this film I don't particularly like. I thought even The Incredible Hulk was better at showing what the serum did. In the Blonsky stuff in the park is better than anything in the stupid montage they've got here, and I don't like the Red Skull. I don't think the Red Skull at this stage of Marvel's development worked live action. Now you can show anything. They've done so much over the years and evolved that they take the audience with them. But the Red Skull pulling up on screen at this stage looked really cartoonish. So in some respects, Captain Marvel I'd like to rank higher and can't. This I would like to rank a lot lower and can't. But there you go. At number 13, Captain Marvel. At number 12, Captain America, the First Avenger.
Becca, what's your
Well,
on list? I can't remember.
number 12.
Number 12, yeah, go on. Yeah.
You're in safe hands, listeners, with Chris Byrne.
I forgot the number of the ranking.
I remember last time we did the ranking, I think I tried to keep tally. I think when we did the Bond films, I tried to keep a tally of what both of you ranked, and I struggled.
I've got them on the screen in front of me. But there you go.
Yeah,
so, what's your number 12?
So my number 12 is Captain America: Civil War.
Fucking hell!
Sorry.
I mean, no disrespect, but what kind of woman are you?
I had to go somewhere.
I really fire. No, it's all right. I'm only kidding. Go on.
There's another one I'd like to swap. I must say, I think Iron Man I struggle to rank. Captain America I struggle to rank. I don't know why.
Flabbergasted.
Shocking. Positively shocking. I just show it.
Get out! No, I'm joking. Go on.
No, it's just one of those things that it's kind of getting to that point where it's quite difficult. Like closer to the top 10 you get, I kind of think, it kind of just got away from me a little bit. Because it's one of those ensemble pieces, and I do kind of struggle. I mean, fair play to Endgame. It's an epic film, and it doesn't feel too baggy in places. But the same with Infinity War, like really massive ensemble pieces. Sometimes it does collapse under the weight, but it's a really important story in terms of the comics. It's fantastic film, but it's one of those things that just kind of, there are other films that I rank higher that I enjoyed more, but still I have great respect for this film, and it's a wonderful ensemble piece, so it doesn't mean I liked any of the less, but I just ranked it number 12.
People get bad news and you see them in hospital corridors looking a bit shocked, and then they go outside for a cigarette which is shaking in their fingers because they're still trying to calm down. That's me and Chris right now.
Well, I'm sorry. Are you falling off your chairs?
No, I'm...
see that like movie montage where something really bad dramatic happens and like, everything just sort of like everything in the background just sort of slows down. You get this like sort of weird melancholy music play over.
Yeah, in Endgame when you saw 5 years later and it cut to New York and the harbour's a mess and all the streets are full of rubbish. That's what's happened to our lives now, Becca.
Yeah, this is where
in Moonraker with a double taking pigeon. That's just happened outside my window now.
Yeah. To be honest, if the pigeon had just been given that news, it would have got whiplash.
Yeah, came home. Like, what?
So the first big shock of the night, guys. Right?
It's not me putting Captain Marvel like.
No, that was I do think there's things in all of our lists we're going to disagree with, and I think Chris has got Captain Marvel too now, but Captain America: Civil War is in the bottom half.
That's fine. That's where it is.
Really good decision, Becca. We love it. Anyway, Chris.
Well, not to be controversial with
controversial,
but
yeah,
mine's.
Sure, there are going to be problems. So
Becca, don't worry, because I could outdo you here.
All right, drum roll, please.
Spider-Man: Homecoming.
What?
No, I get that.
I'm not too far behind. Don't worry.
Well, yeah, we are reaching. I mean, by this point, we are reaching into decent top tier Marvel.
It's the reach around section of the
yeah.
show.
I mean, Dave, have you done your top 12?
Yeah, I've done my
Sure
12.
about
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. I'll concede it with my 11 because I was kind of tempting about which way round I was going to do it. My number 11 is Captain America for the first Avenger. And I think when it came to deciding between these two, I think probably Spider-Man. Well, not probably, but Spider-Man is probably the better film. But I just there's something about the charm and the heart and
It's Act 1, isn't it? It's Act 1
in Captain America that I just take to it. It sold me on Steve. I don't know. I just have a natural preference. No disrespect to Spider-Man. I think he's actually a really good entry in the series. But
mind you, if I was going to put Spider-Man: Homecoming in the wrong place, I'd do it just after Becca put Civil War in the bottom half because we're all still sweating. Calm down, God.
Anyway, yeah. So basically, I think we'll talk probably more about Homecoming later on. But yeah, it was just that those choices were largely down to just like my own personal like what would I rather watch or what's my personal affiliation. I think it is Cap's my favourite, and I think that film nailed Cap, and as we're getting closer to 4, I do have a soft spot for those two of the Marvel films of that year. So yeah, Captain America.
Captain America. I'm just watching. What have you got at number 11, Becca?
At number 11, I've got Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
So have I. So let's talk about that.
Oh, I've redeemed myself for now.
For now.
For now.
For now.
Until next time.
You're kind of on probation.
Until next time, Gadget.
Yes, yes. The trouble is, I've now ranked the very next film exactly the same way as Becca, so I've now got to talk it's.
What's your reason?
Volume 2, almost interesting with the Guardians films. I mentioned 2 films on the list I think I've ranked quote unquote lower than where the general public would have them, and otherwise I've got a list that most people would at least recognise. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is not that much weaker, but it didn't have rewatch value. When I went to see it, it had its strengths in different places because Guardians of the Galaxy came roaring right out of the gate. 20 minutes into that film, it's just grabbed you and it's great. But the third act of Guardians of the Galaxy I'll talk about when I get to the film where I've ranked it, but I didn't like it, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 had tons of heart and lots to like in its third act, but I go back and watch it now and it's all right. Kurt Russell's great, the father-son stuff's great. I'm quite a wimp for that sort of stuff anyway, for various, reasons from my own life. I'm quite a sucker for that sort of thing. But Guardians is the one property in the whole series that I seem to need new content each time. When I go to rewatch stuff, I'm always a bit like, all right. And that's why it's kind of in the middle. It's all right, but it's not better than anything I've put ahead of it.
I had a good time with this film. It's one of those films that sadly for me, it does sort of drag and sag a little bit. But no, it's just, as I say, we talked to the top of the film about our reasonings behind these ranking films. It's one that I did have a really good time with. It was quite funny. It's got really good action scenes as well. Kurt Russell, always a bonus on fine form. And there's a kind of interesting twist. Well, is it a twist? I don't know. Twist that isn't a twist. With his character. You kind of don't really know where he's going to be, what's going to happen, and then only to have the rug pulled out from underneath you. He's just proved that he's once again, he's a legend, a really versatile actor. And as I say, the same with Ant-Man as well. It's more about sort of comedy. There's a ragtag bunch of characters who perhaps you wouldn't otherwise put together, trying to work out their own place in the world, as it were, in the universe. And it's ones again that I didn't know too much about, unfortunately. But no, I've really enjoyed this one. With these 2 films, I did struggle to rank them, but kind of that's why I put it in my number 11 spot.
Okay. Hey, we're getting to the cream now. We're getting to the top 10. Not off.
Cue cheesy Top of the Pops music.
What, you mean this?
That's the one. Cue those swinging cymbals.
Super. Right, anyway, so.
Super.
Smoothly done, folks.
So we're at number 10. So after Guardians of the Galaxy 2, at number 11 from you guys, my number 10 is Guardians of the Galaxy.
The first one.
Yeah, the first one.
That doesn't surprise me. I had a feeling you preferred the sequel.
Yeah, I do. I do think the sequel's better, but this one's a really solid entry. I think it was bold. It was fun. It was fresh universe. There's not much more to say. I think it's just a good Marvel film to kind of crack open. I think
crack one off too.
I was going to say crack open, but I thought that's just the wrong word. Anyway, yeah, but if
you're looking to crack one off, we recommend Guardians of the Galaxy.
Anyway,
go on.
But I think why this film's actually one of the good things about this is that you can introduce someone who's never seen a Marvel film, and it comes across as a fresh new world, and I think it works as a standalone film or a start of a standalone franchise.
Yes.
In its own way. So yeah. So I think to its credit, I think it's Guardians of the Galaxy is a decent entry at number 10.
Okay, at number 10 I have Thor Ragnarok. Not going to say that much about it, just because we already have. The biggest strength and the biggest weakness of the film is the amount of humour in it. The biggest strength because they finally worked out what like Hemsworth's big strengths are. I mean, he can do most things, but yeah, you go light comedic and he's your man. And he's really good at it. So it's got all that, but the plot is so what? I mean, it sets up Ragnarok at the start and then returns to it right at the end, and then the middle stuff is just, what's that even about, really? Always nice to have a bit of time with Hulk. That's great, but yeah, it's just it is so signposting its comedy, and every scene seems to be written around a joke. And when you watch it with that in mind, it becomes really obvious. Do you know what I mean? You can watch it and think, well, that was quite comedic, but when you watch it going, they're writing this scene ready to do a joke, it really becomes obvious. And you can see it the split second before it happens. The camera cuts wide every single time. So it's, in its own way, kind of a little bit lazy. But in some respects, it's given Thor new life. You couldn't have had, potentially a Thor 4 that was the same style as, the first two. And I think there is a chance of like a Thor 4 now, be it with or without the Guardians. So I like it. I think this is one of the two films I've got ranked lower than the general public have it, because I think most people seem to have it in their top sort of 6 or so, but it doesn't belong that high, in my opinion. So at number 10, Thor Ragnarok.
At number 10, I have Avengers Infinity War. I don't know if that's too high or too low, but yes, I placed that there. But yeah, it's bold, it's really brave. Stakes are really high. But yeah, there's kind of, for me, there was no other place for it. Well, I probably could have ranked it higher, but again, also in terms of enjoyability too. But yeah, this is my top 10.
Well, I suppose I could go and start saying Infinity War's my number 9. I think
I'm in the right area.
Yeah, well, yeah.
No, because I haven't named it yet. Carry on.
It's your number 1. Oh.
No, I think the only thing that sets us down is that it is that it's part 1 of a story.
Yeah.
And that's probably its major thing. Other than that, it has a lot going on. I think its major triumph is Thanos. Marvel have done a really good job. I mean, I think we're all like worried and think, fucking hell, the build up to Thanos. is he going to be a bit underwhelming? Like, it could
Because
be
they're
like,
nearly always shit Marvel villains
Yeah.
as well.
So the fact that
You're
he
going
actually,
to fluff the big guy,
yeah,
Not fluff the big guy as in, like, a fluffer.
as in like sort of give her a nice comfy pillow and.
Yeah, I didn't think Marvel were going to fluff the big guy. That's not what I meant.
Um,
Anyway, carry on.
But actually made a domineering villain, powerful villain. That you can relate to in some way and you can understand, and
He's sort of like the iconic movie villains, isn't he? Really?
actually have a character and think, actually, I kind of get this guy in a twisted, evil, obscured worldview way. You know, what I mean, he has some sympathy to him, which is you don't often see in films in general. So yeah, I can't talk now. Infinity War I admire a lot, and I'm actually kind of surprised it's this low. But I think by the time we reach the top 10, we are just going into what
I'm
our
surprised
personal
you both
preferences.
got it this low, but they're top 10. I can't really
Yeah,
pick fault with it, but I'm surprised because I think I've got it too low, and I'm nowhere near naming it yet. But there you go.
yeah.
Becca, what have you got at 9?
At number 9, I've got Spider-Man: Homecoming.
So have I. So
Spider-Man. Yeah, no, it's a bit...
yeah, we begged her not to do that during the show because she would have done it again and again and again and again. So that's repressed. That's been Becca holding back for about 6 weeks.
Why are there pink tracks on the ceiling? Big...
All right, I've got it at number 9 too, so we can both talk about it now.
Oh, good.
I'm going to try and adopt saying Spider-Man, but in a Spanish accent.
Okay.
Just for a bit, and I'm trying to figure out how to do it now.
No, it's not. It's not obvious. It's not difficult. It's not difficult. It's not easy, rather.
Lost Spider-Man. No.
If you're Spanish and would like to say Spider-Man to us, write to us at expectustop@gmail.com.
Send us a BAV file.
Or Irish, there you are. Yeah. Spider-Man
No, it's
in an
because
Irish
obviously
accent.
I'm not a huge fan of spiders. Obviously, I know Charlie has tarantulas and they're beautiful. But it's just one of those things where, like,
Becca
if you
hates
try
them.
and, you try and make something that's quite scary. You try and kind of make it a bit silly. So I sort of pronounce it in weird and wonderful ways.
Well, just
And
think
so
of
yeah,
the,
it's kind of
just think of the Who song, Boris the Spider. There you are.
Boris the Spider. Legendary song. So definitely
Yeah, legendarily so.
epic. But yeah, no,
Okay.
Spider-Man: Homecoming definitely is a really fun film. And I think now, with Tom Holland, we do have what I consider to be like definitive Spider-Man. Definitely a Spider-Man for this generation for sure. And for an actor so young, he really does sort of take on both aspects of the role because you kind of got the Peter Parker side and the Spider-Man side. And you obviously can't have one
Hang
without
on,
the
that's the
other.
same guy.
Oh, news alert!
Fucking hell, I ought to pay more attention when I'm watching this shit. I wonder why he suddenly whipped his keks off in that alley. I thought he was just meeting someone.
No, it's one of those ones. It is, kind of you've got to get it. It's for the new generation of Marvel fans coming in as well, and hopefully he'll hang around in the role, for a long time because he does it really well. I think it's probably better than some of the other ones we've had. So,
Yeah, although I don't want them to do the next year of school every 2 years because otherwise we will get into a silly territory in a minute where he's in first year of college, age 31 or something. But I've got it at number 9 as well. I think it's a sign that they've nailed Spider-Man. I'm not convinced they've nailed a Spider-Man film yet. Certainly in live action. I'm not going to get into Spider-Verse because we'll talk about that when we cover the Spider-Man films in a few series time. But I think it's fair to say with Spider-Verse, I didn't quite get the degree of love for it, but I thought it was very good. I'm not going to say anything particularly negative about it. But where a lot of people were like, that's the definitive Spider-Man film now, I don't really see that. So this is about as good as we've got if you just talk live action. I would rank it probably above Spider-Man 2 if I was inclined to rank them, but a lot of that is Spider-Man. That is the fact that I like him a lot more than Tobey Maguire. That Mary Jane stuff didn't play for me particularly well in the original trilogy and so on. But it's lacking a certain verve, a certain inventiveness, a certain life. And I'm hoping it will come with sequels. We'll just have to see. They've got the right guy. They've got the right guy, and he's home. And this film had to go top 10 almost for the Marvel logo alone, because I choked up at the logo. That showed you how much this film meant to me, that like he was home, and how much I love Spider-Man more than even I thought I did. But the very fact I can love a character that much and only put it at number 9 tells me they haven't quite nailed one yet, but it's also a sign there's a lot of great stuff to come. So number 9 for me and Becca, Spider-Man Homecoming.
I'm looking forward to Far From Home. I think I'm kind of quite keenly positive on that. I think that's going to be a surprise. I wouldn't say surprisingly, but actually surprisingly better than we're expecting it to be. I think people are excited about it, but I think it's actually going to turn out to be way better.
I thought the teaser was crap, but it turned out they couldn't really show anything. And I think even now there's a lot they can't know, because Mysterio's well known as a very dishonest character, for clues in the name, really. And of course they can't really sell that in the trailer, and they don't really want us to know quite what the multiverse is all about at this stage. So we're still not seeing a lot. I'm still not convinced it's the right filmmaker and all the rest of it. There's... I don't know. We'll see. But they've got the right guy, and that's so important.
Yeah. So are we all at our number 8s now?
We are at our number 8.
Okay.
Can you go first, Chris?
Okay, sure. I'm probably going to piss more people off now. Black Panther. But it's in the top 10, so
so that makes it all right.
Oh, as Becca said.
Oh.
Yeah, we know it's not like, it's not like leaving Civil War out of the top 10,
is
it?
Concurs.
Pretty solid entry, really good. Last act lets it down, quite frankly. That's probably the only reason why it's a bit lower.
Where it's like a school playground fight.
But
a nation at war with 50 people.
But yeah, again, new world, quite interesting, decent character. I'm not too sure on the tech element as well, but there you are. I think the two first acts are actually quite solid.
It is funny, isn't it, where they go, how did you do that? Vibranium. Like, that in itself explains
the answer to everything is vibranium.
Yeah.
How did you fix my back? Vibranium. What, have you put a fucking metal rod in there? What you on about?
I'd like to know more details, please.
Yeah.
I bet Destin with the ones spinning in his grave, just thinking all the technical bullshit I could have said.
Yeah. Yeah. I could have got out on the battlefield. Look at Endgame. Now, pay attention, Thanos.
Well,
whack.
He did it in License to Kill, I guess, didn't he?
Kind of.
He went out on the field, yeah. But I think Desmond would have just quite simply.
Well, you've seen the size of
he would just
berate. Hands.
Yeah, he would just berated Chikala and just gone like, pay attention.
He lit his hands. Yeah. Yeah.
I call it the Ghetto Blaster.
Yeah. Okay, so number 8, Black Panther.
Yeah.
All right. I'll go next. Guardians of the Galaxy at number 8. This is the second of the two that I think I've got lower than consensus. I think a lot of people rank this, to this day, top 3 to 5. I'm not going to say a lot because my reasoning is exactly the same as the Volume 2. I need new content each time. I don't think it's got massive rewatch value. I think the whole prison stuff goes on way fucking too long. People remember the, Groot, they're doing that intricate plan and then Groot's in the background starting it all off. They remember the best bits, but that stuff is too long. And the third act is possibly the worst in Marvel. Up against some pretty stiff competition because Act 3s are never normally that good. But Act 3 of this, the firing up at the sky and the Nova Corps, and I didn't give a shit, to be honest with you. Oh, Peter Serafinowicz has died. Well, I know Peter Serafinowicz from other things, so I know who he is. But if you didn't know who he was, would you care? So it's a very good film, but it only ranks this high for its universe. The characters, the interplay, the humour, even characters like Drax who just shouldn't work. Not with a former wrestler, you know what I mean? It shouldn't work, but a bit like Thor Ragnarok, it leans so heavily on its humour. But yeah, it's top 10, so number 8, Guardians of the Galaxy.
I mean, it does make you wonder, like, where the fuck was Captain Marvel for all this time? The Kree wrecking up shit, and when she was like off around, saving the galaxy.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah.
But yeah,
And
I'm sure.
to be honest,
I'm sure I'll explain something, but
it's the job you want if you're a lazy bastard. I'd be a brilliant Captain Marvel. I'd just ring in once a month and say, "No, I've been busy." That's it. You're brilliant. I don't know. And the thing is, I don't know if she's under contract to the Avengers. She's still getting her pay packet. You know what I mean? Thanks, brilliant. Yeah, I've been busy. What doing? Oh, a bit complicated. I'll explain it to you sometime.
you just say the galaxy.
The galaxy. It's still there. What have you been doing? Well, it's still there, thanks to me.
Yeah.
What have you got, number, Becca?
My number 8, I have Thor Ragnarok, for the reasons outlined below. Yeah, no, it's funniest. I can't pronounce his name. I'm sorry, but yeah, Taika Waititi is like my favourite director's evs. And does a fabulous job with this. Again, genius casting, all round.
Yeah, who'd have thought casting Chris Hemsworth?
I know.
That was a bold choice.
He was stunned when he found out. Oh, that's a coincidence. He was in the last two. Brilliant.
Definitely. But seriously, I'd say if you know if you're coming, as I said in the first time round, if you're coming to his films through Thor, then I can definitely recommend checking out Hunt for the Lord People, and also one of his earlier films, Boy, which I think may be on Netflix, but is available on other streaming sites too, and also on home release. And also, obviously, What We Do in the Shadows, which is now spawned the amazing TV series, which is just hilarious.
Have you seen it?
And from there, you can offshoot, and yeah, it's really, really good. I'm really enjoying it. And also, there you can offshoot onto Flight of the Conchords, which is kind of thinly veiled, tenuous link, but still equally hilarious when it comes to New Zealand comedy. But anyway, yeah, no, really had a good time with this film. Loving the 80s vibe, and Kate Blanchett just. As probably like the craziest villainess as how definitely she chews that scenery all day long. But it's kind of you kind of have to go. Did you enjoy this one as well? Yes, I did. I mean, it's not perfect, but just the 80s sheen.
The entertainment value's high.
It has high entertainment value. That's right, Chris. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
definitely. I was quite comfortable putting it in the top 10. Certainly. Yeah. Do you want to start with number 7?
Put it there.
Yeah, Chris put it down at 16. But mind you, I put The Spy Who Loved Me at 16 in the Bond list, so it's similar, I suppose.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, the spread of my rankings are fairly similar as well, actually. Yeah. Okay, Becca, what did you put at 7?
Where's my list gone? I minimised it for a second whilst I read something. Sorry.
All right. Focus.
Focus button. Right. So number 7, I've got Captain Marvel.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those random things. I'd say other characters that I don't know about are ranked lower. So I think, why have you hide this one? Purely, for the feminist.
Because
women.
it's a woman, and you hate men.
Yes. No, not at all. Not at all.
Right.
No, but it's just one of those things. It's like, girls of a certain generation do have that icon now. Obviously, along with Wonder Woman, sort of smashing it, definitely. It's very much for this generation.
Wonder Woman was a better film. But
of course,
we're not ranking it here, though, are we? So
I would rank it next time. Rank it higher, definitely. But yeah, I kind of think in terms of seeing her again at Endgame, I kind of thought, oh, she's going to be the one who would really put Thanos in his place and bring an end to it all. And she buggers off for half the film. Like, well, I'm busy. There's other planets to save. Fair enough.
She's watching Deal or No Deal, isn't she? That's what it is.
That's been on TV for years. The Chase.
Yeah, but it's a different galaxy.
She's off on an alternate timeline.
They're probably doing a remake over
watching
there.
Watching reruns of.
They found a different guy. They found a different blonde bloke with a tiny beard to present it.
She's gone down to Creepy Bottom to watch those other programs.
Yeah, funny enough, that's all where Paul Rudd's wrinkles are on his bottom. That's why it looks so young.
That's why they call it Creepy Bottom.
I'm still reeling from the shock Deal or No Deal's not on anymore because I didn't know. Anyway, carry on.
But anyway, yeah. So I ranked that at my number 7. How about yourselves?
Black Panther at number 7 for me. I and ahed between this and what I've put at number 6, basically. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. They're both kind of top 6 or 7, so fine. Black Panther's promising more than anything else. I think it had a cultural impact, and I think they thought Captain Marvel would have, and it sort of didn't in the same way. Although part of that was it was even closer to the Avengers films than Black Panther had been. Black Panther had like 2.5 months or whatever it was to itself. Captain Marvel had just over a month. So, although it's grossed very well, Captain Marvel, and in absolute terms rather similar actually worldwide, Black Panther certainly had the cultural footprint that the later film didn't have. It was no surprise to me when all the portals open. The first outline you see is T'Challa. He's just got real pull in this universe. And there's a bit of Bond in the first act. I was so disappointed on first viewing because it went away after the first act. But now I know what
I've been waiting for a decent Bond film for ages.
I know.
No one's come along.
You get one in the strangest places. But yeah, there was a lot of Bond in the first act of it, from the Q influence to the casino stuff, but with a fresh spin on it. They weren't just copying a Bond film. It was very much Marvel. I mean, it was all action, the sort of action Bond couldn't do. It would never attempt, obviously. It was funny. I think the biggest thing, but I think it's more promising than anything else. I think Black Panther 2 will be a better film whenever that comes along. And the third act, again, it's Guardians level poor. I think we're supposed to feel something because he's fighting Killmonger. Well, I like the Killmonger character largely because I like Michael B. Jordan, but it didn't quite have the effect on me that I thought it was going to have. If you told me what was going to happen and what his motivation was, I thought I would have found that quite moving in principle. But in practice, he didn't do that much. Their fight at the end is pretty crap, to be honest. And before that, you've got a load of Battlefield stuff where it looks like about 50 extras having a bit of a fucking dust up.
Tens of men.
It's meant to be a nation at war. And when Marvel have made the money they've made, that's actually kind of unforgivable at this stage. The best action sequence in the film was Busan. Which is only about 25 minutes into the film, I think. I'm guessing there. Mm-hmm. So, as a film, it's all right. As a property, it's fantastic. And I think the biggest thing I can say in its favour is it gets better with each watch, and the characters get better with each watch. Okoye made no impact on me on first viewing. Now I get it totally. So yeah, Black Panther at number 7.
I think Dave will be thrilled. My number 7 is 4. Yeah, this one's just
I'm really surprised that you ranked it so high.
Well, I'm really surprised he had the balls to laugh at you for putting someone in the wrong half.
There we are. We all make our mistakes, don't we?
Oh, we do. I think this one's just more out of personal choice. I just really take to it. I understand its criticisms. I understand it's not a perfect film by any stretch of the means. I mean, even down to Chris Hemsworth's blonde eyebrows.
Rented from the Nigel Mansell Museum.
But I don't know. There's just like a real charm to it. I Need a Horse. I think it just gets extra points for that alone. It also got like Loki, Tom Hiddleston. This is purely to me character and has a lot of emotion to it that I just don't get from newer films. That's why it's as high as it is. So I think while yes, there was some criticisms that you can lay at this film that clearly aren't at the others because they're just at a higher standard. This film does hit a more emotional thing for me, so than the others do. So that's why it's as high as it is. But yeah, 4 is at number 7 for me.
Basically, 13 places on Chris's list between Thor and Captain Marvel, which is a competent version of Thor. Anyway, what have you got in number 6,
Captain
Chris?
Marvel is not competent at all. Anyway.
Yes, it fucking is.
It's not.
Apart from the wigs. They're not very competent.
The wigs?
They should have gone to the Nigel Mansell Museum and got one. The two guys wearing the wigs in,
Okay.
Captain Marvel of shit. Anyway, we got number 6.
Number 6 is The Winter Soldier.
Fuck off.
Nope.
I mean, sorry.
Nope.
What an interesting choice, Chris. Tell us about that.
Pissing everyone left, right, and centre.
You were doing so well.
Really?
This is like you were holding Man City to a draw at 70 minutes, and we're now 5 minutes on, and you're 4-0 down. Carry on. They're doing it so. Oh, carry on.
Anyway, so we are reaching the top tier Marvel films, so it's difficult to differentiate in terms of quality. I think
that's no excuse, Chris.
It is because I you know what, I just never take to this film as much as popular opinion would have me.
It's not fun.
I don't know what it is, because there's a lot of things I like about it, but I just happen just to prefer other Marvel movies. I don't know what to say. I mean, all I will say is I think Civil War does it better. So
I mean, I just imagine, like, yeah, we did the rankings episode. How did it go? Well, yeah, my list was this. I've heard Chris before. What was his list like? Well, the Winter Soldier just shaded Thor. All right, go on.
yeah.
Right, okay.
And relax.
Right, while we're calming down, what have you got at number 6, Becca?
At number 6, I've got Guardians of the Galaxy. Just purely because, it's one of those great ensemble pieces. And the comedy value of it as well.
We were caught in complete silence there because that's a staggeringly competent choice after the last 5 minutes, because I think that's roughly where it belongs.
Think I fell off my chair? Oh my god.
Yeah. Ted Danson would be breaking his hip when he listens to this.
We have to get him on the show, so...
Absolutely, Ted. Ted, we did a joke for some reason out of nowhere that you fell off a chair once in a film that doesn't exist. Would you like to appear on our show to discuss Mission Impossible 2?
Please advise. Also, would you consider doing a cheers?
So Ted Danson, does this film exist? No. Have you ever once fallen off your chair? What type of chair was it?
Night.
If you could fall off a chair, what
type of chair would you choose?
What chair would you fall from?
And would you like to fall off it doing a double pistol thing, sort of John Woo Mission Impossible 2 style?
Where do you purchase your chairs?
Or would you prefer to fall off a chair whilst jumping from one building to another on it, Mission Impossible 6 style?
Where do you purchase your chairs? Walmart or IKEA?
What, those are the only two choices?
Well, I don't know.
What was your chair made of? Is it plastic? Is it metal? Is it bamboo? Or what?
Bamboo.
There's so many questions we could ask him.
Does it have a cushion?
All largely chair related.
Is it hardback? Does it have wheels? Does it have casters?
You know what?
These are the questions people want to know.
We get right to the heart of the big question.
If you wanted to, talk to somebody who was the highest paid sitcom star for about a decade in the world, and also worked with Leonard Nimoy, and we've done a Star Trek series, yeah, you'd ask him about his seating arrangements. So, Guardians of the Galaxy, Becca, at number 6.
Yes. That's pretty much it. What else can I say?
Wise words. Okay, my number 6, you'll be pleased to hear, is like a decent choice. Nah, Becca's was right. I think Guardians you got it in the right sort of area, I would say. I think I had it. I've got it where I want to put it, but it feels too low in sort of general consensus, if you like. At number 6, I've got Iron Man. This is my sort of golden eye choice. This is my it's so important I have to put it fairly high. This universe lives off the back of this man's work and this series. So what Jon Favreau established and what Robert Downey Jr. established. It's still a really good film. Again, it's got a weak third act, as is common with Marvel. But I think, firstly, the first 2 acts are so good. And secondly, a lot of what makes Act 3 weak is kind of budgetary at this stage. And I am more likely to forgive it in a film that is so effects heavy anyway. But also, I think the film is kind of helped across the whole piece. It's helped by having a fairly low budget, I think, in that I think it has to focus on character work. There's very few action set pieces. There's him getting out of the cave. There's him sort of with the Mark II armor. There's the return to Golmira, and there's the stuff at the end. There's probably, I don't know, 8 to 10 minutes of action in the whole film. So,
and it's very efficient, isn't it? It's very much like, you know, I think
it's a tight film. I mean, I think we said, I think we're implicitly leaving Act 3 out of this almost. But the first two acts are like Back to the Future tight. They really are. Like every scene has a point, it be it character or plot. So and that's really what I had to think. I was really sometimes on this list you're almost pairing films, and this was almost paired with Black Panther. And when I looked at it, I mean Chadwick Boseman made nowhere near the effect on me that Tony Stark's, that Robert Downey Jr. did as Tony Stark. And it's not as tight a film. It's not as well structured. I mean, in Black Panther, they're taking his powers away for every 2 fucking seconds, and I'm used to it now. But on first viewing, it was fake. It felt vaguely ridiculous, actually. And I can actually spot more dodgy effects in Black Panther than I can in Iron Man, probably because Iron Man is less ambitious in the first place. There's not much between them. I can't put it top 5. I think this is probably from Guardians up, so my number 8 up. I think all of these could probably top the list, with probably the exception of Iron Man. I think after 22 films, it would be very hard to stick the first one at the top. I think they have built on it quite well, but it belongs. This whole series was built off the back of this film, and it's not just that it went first. Relative quality compared to the rest, it's better than a Doctor No, although it's ranked very similar to what I did with Doctor No in that ranking list. But yeah, Iron Man at number 6 for me. And I just have to say, as a final little thing, I am really shocked I'm the first to mention it. I thought I'd have the highest of the three of us.
Well, you should say that, because it's my number 5.
Okay.
I think you've pretty much said what how I feel. I think Downey's great. I think it's just a really solid entry, and I think in a way, where Marvel's gone, I think I don't know. I can't speak for any of us or listeners. I think it almost gets forgotten about. I think, oh yeah, hang on, yeah, this did start here, because this is how far we've gone, and actually it's quite a nice, tight, enjoyable little film. That who'd have thought we'd have gotten this far with it, So yeah, that's all I had on it. I think absolutely, it's the film that started it all. It rejuvenated Downey's career. It's a very enjoyable, tight little film, and I appreciate for its tightness and its I actually quite like Jeff Bridges in it as well. Despite I think the only downside, he's kind of tampered with a weak third act film thing.
Yes.
But anything before that is actually he's quite a formidable villain, even though we don't know he's a villain until towards the end anyway. But the reveal works nicely. It's only up till you have to fight the other big guy in an armoured suit that it gets a bit alright. It's a bit generic. But other than that, I think Iron Man. Decent number 5.
Well, snap, because Iron Man is also at my number 5.
Okay, so we've got them really similar.
Yeah.
1 6 and 2 5s, yeah. Okay.
We didn't share the list beforehand, so
No. I think when we did Bond, I shared my list, and but I typically write them earlier and faster. So mine was ready, and I think those two were sort of still tampering with theirs right near the end. So I never got to see their list, and when we did Star Trek, we didn't share them anyway. So by and large, we don't share lists. This is always a bit of a surprise to us. But they did happen to see my Bond list, and then frankly forgot it anyway, because there's like 25 films on it, so you're not going to remember what's where. But yeah, okay. Anything you want to add on Iron Man before we move on, Becca?
No, but as I say, yeah, even if it's one of those characters I say that perhaps I might not warm to, I think here, as I say, it did wonders for his career. And I think you can prove that he's got so much star power that he could carry on that character for another decade and plus. And when he does finally, spoiler alert, bite the bullet in Endgame, it's really heartfelt, and I don't think there's a dry eye in the times that I've seen it, I don't think there's a dry eye in any of the houses in which I saw it, and any of the the cinema screenings. So it just goes to prove what impact he's had with the character through the course of that decade.
But he was never bested. I mean, when you get the Avengers,
I can't imagine anybody else in the role now.
Well, it's just Endgame when it finishes and you get all the character signatures, Star Trek 6 style.
Yeah.
He's still in the Shatner role. He's still the one that goes last. He's still the name. Now, I'm sure that's part contractual, but he's still the big star.
Exactly.
And
he's the big draw.
There was nothing to say that would definitely have been the case. So it showed you what an impact Iron Man made.
Exactly.
Okay, you went last on that, and so consequently got less to say. What's it, number 4, Becca?
So number 4, I've got Captain America: Winter Soldier, purely because it is the best of the Captain America movies.
So that's only 2 places of like above mine. My ranking.
Yeah, I know,
below, make up your mind.
I know, but we wasted all our like bile on a ranking of Civil War, so I've got to just be quiet and respectful now.
Yeah, sorry about that. I ranked that one in the right place. It's one of those things. It's just this time I knew where it wanted to go. It was somewhere in my top 5. I'm sorry it couldn't be in my top 3, but by concession, it's in my top 4. In the 1%. But yeah, by concession, it's in my number 4 spot. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it's for me, it's kind of one of those classic 1960s, 70s like paranoia thriller type movies. And yeah, it's the kind of it's the best in terms of the Captain America series for me anyway. I really enjoyed it, and it's those sort of films you just don't make anymore. I think I think it's kind of upend the political status quo. I think is really important, and it's a really good solid film.
I do remember at the time when it was out, I did have like a vibe of this mid-90s mid-budget action film that we don't get anymore. I mean, maybe John Wick.
Do you mean like Enemy of the State or something?
Yeah, actually, for some reason I was thinking something like True Lies. You know what I mean? This kind of like random offshoot film made by like studios with which
I've seen now. I finally saw that for the first time last
Really?
year. I have seen True Lies now. Yeah.
It's a remake of a French film.
Yeah.
Which
Le True Lies.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
But which makes sense because like when you see it, you think it does have a bit of a French vibe to it actually. But yeah.
I was about to ask any listeners who could speak French to write to us at expectustotalk@gmail.com, but no one's going to speak French better than I just did, so forget it.
Le True Lies, yeah.
Well, that was pretty good.
But yeah, it did get me like hungry. We don't get these like don't get any sort of like almost like big budget action like proper action movies anymore. Really, it's all unless it's like off a franchise anyway, and or like a Marvel film or something.
It took a little independent to come along, like Captain America: The Winter Soldier.
So it did touch that vibe to it, but yeah, that's all I want to add to it.
Okay, what have you got for Chris?
At 4, I have Guardians 2. Yeah, I
thought you said Thor again. I thought
That's really surprised me actually. You ranked Thor so highly. I'm really surprised.
At number 4. At number 3, 4.
At number 2. Oh.
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
I am very, very much not surprised by this because I'm not even going to refer to our review of it. I'm actually going to refer to when you saw it the first time.
Yeah.
That's in the lifetime of this show, and we covered it on a summer review episode, and you were just fulsome in your praise of it.
Yeah, I just instantly sort of thought, okay, well, I think that's probably top 5, and I was actually sort of thinking maybe top 3 at the time as well. But then again, maybe that was before other films are coming. So yeah, I just thought it's really tight on, and its character and character work, and how letting its characters making rational choices and let that guide the story, and it had a really heartfelt ending that other Marvel films don't have, and it had a really nice message. And yeah, I think out of all the films, out of all the Marvel films, this is one of the ones which has a real emotional punch and had and meant something as well, which you don't necessarily see. So, yeah, that's why it's as high as for me.
It was a relief to watch an Act 3 that earned some emotional beats.
Yeah.
Because these films just switch their fucking brains off. And, not only did it have some inventiveness in its action, they're fighting inside a brain effectively, but it's got real heart as well.
Yeah.
Again, it's back to the father-son stuff, which always has a bit of a pull on me for various reasons. It's only when I rewatched it, it didn't have any of that effect on me the second time. But I think that's me and the Guardians full stop. I had Volume 2 at 11 and the first one at number 8. To be fair, there's not much between them. That is kind of you're getting into the elite level, and it's a bit of a nitpick. I think the first one is just more memorable, frankly, in a lot of ways. But I thought Guardians 2 was a more consistent film.
Yeah.
Certainly a more consistent film, because Guardians of the Galaxy, you might as well switch it off after an hour and a quarter, honestly. Yeah. At number 4 for me is The Avengers. We're getting into nitpick territory now. We're getting into the sort of, I think my top 2 stand apart, but certainly from 3 down to about 7. They could have gone in almost any order, to be honest with you. The Avengers was a film that just shouldn't have worked. Now, in hindsight, when you look back, of course, it was going to work. You know what I mean? Marvel, as a comic book, exercises, but had shared universes for years, and they ought to know what they're doing. But I was skeptical. Phase 1 was a bit iffy anyway. I ended up ranking it fairly high, but I didn't particularly like the first Avenger the first time. I didn't really like Thor the first time. We didn't know what we were going to get as the Incredible Hulk because there'd been a recast. I kind of had a feel for what his banner would be like, but I think it necessitated a redesigned Hulk, and I didn't like the original Hulk. I still see social media chat where people say that was the best design. It's like, really? Looked dreadful. But so I went into the film really unsure. And you're bringing back the Romanoff character, where she'd just been a wet dream in Iron Man 2. Very pleasurable one, but I wasn't sure there was a character there really. We hadn't seen much of Barton. Small little cameo in Thor, that was about it. Well, it's not really a cameo when you're not famous, is it? Kind of a small part. And then it came together, and my recollection of the film is the first 40 minutes is a bit perfunctory, and actually when we reviewed it, it's nowhere near that long. The setup's a little bit clunky, and getting the band together is a little bit clunky. And Loki is like a first level villain. He's not the boss fight. So the Avengers to me still feels a little bit proof of concept, but you got to prove the concept at some point, and they proved it in style, and it stands up as well. I thought I would go back to the Avengers and find it a little bit twee, a little bit like, remember when we thought this was a big deal? Particularly when you look at the last sort of shots of Endgame and everyone is there, going back and getting excited about 6 people or whatever. But it stands up very well. It's very funny. It suited Whedon. It turned out Whedon didn't have a second one in him, but it really suited Whedon to the degree that if you'd have told me after that film he was quitting or he was only going to do one more, I would worried about the universe. So I've just done a little cut there, listeners, but I'm actually going to just front up exactly what's happened. I've just done my number 4 ahead of my number 5. And we did the other two's number 5. 4's before I did 5, so I'm going to have to do 4 and 5 together. I haven't named... I was just about to get to the point in talking about the Avengers where I said, well, better directors were about to come along and all of their films are better. And then I realised the first one I needed to name, I haven't named. At number 5, I've got Infinity War. I was a little bit surprised Becca and Chris have got it as low as they've got. I don't think they're wrong per se. My only problem with Infinity War is there's no room to breathe. This is what I thought an Avengers film, a bit like Age of Ultron, but a lot better than. In that it's overstuffed. Frankly, you haven't got time to spend any time with anyone, and any exposition has to be sort of dealt on the fly. So Tony's wedding in that, it's a throwaway remark, and it works, but it's a better feat of filmmaking than it is a film. So whilst I applaud its ambition and have to put it above the Iron Mans and the Black Panthers in this world, it doesn't it doesn't come close to going any higher. It sort of sits in a little sort of valley by itself. My top 4 are well above it. But yeah, Infinity War's at number 5, and apologies for screwing that up, listeners. The Avengers is at number 4. And as I've been talking for a long time, can somebody else start the number 3s?
At my number 3, I'm just going to cream on in. At my number 3, I have Black Panther.
Okay.
For reasons mentioned above. This is like the cultural landmark of the MCU, definitely. Even though sadly Character Okoye is greatly underused, hopefully she'll get her own spin-off movie. That'd be cool. But I love the Bond scenes, even if they weren't intentional. The car chase through Busan, not Seoul, Busan. Yeah, the car chase through Busan is fantastic. Again, the answer, how do you do that, vibranium? Well, there it is. Hopefully we'll know more as time goes on. But no, I think it's sad that it's taken till now that this film can be made. But I'm really pleased that cinema has come this far. Sadly, it's taken too long. But we have it now, and it's fantastic. It's a real piece of landmark filmmaking.
Super.
Yeah, and that's cool. Stress that enough.
The footprint can't be denied. As much as people say, you don't get a lot of it, and it more than Captain Marvel, it's just the trolls. And I think more than Captain Marvel because it's a better film than Captain Marvel. So Captain Marvel will get a bit more legitimate criticism, if you like. But Black Panther, you still read a little bit of like whining at the affirmative action, and I think, well, if every superhero is a white male a white male, then all of a sudden, when you do anything to redress the balance at all, people start whining like it's preferential treatment. I think it's very wise, even if just to build audiences, it's very wise to go into other continents and see other people, and we'll get a bit more Asia in Phase 4 as well, I'm sure of it. So because we are going to get sort of a martial arts film in that phase, I just think it's a big world. Let's see a bit of it.
I don't think that's the problem, though. I think it's mostly it's Twitter's a very very small world in comparison to the rest of it. Of course it is. But I think what you find is a lot of people just sent to arguments a lot of the time, and it's just like it just gets very high schooly. I blame the arguments on both sides, quite frankly. They all get pretty much nitpicky because I think they assign bad intentions of each other, and they tend to attack those intentions rather than just sort of be, hey, it's a film with it's a black superhero film, isn't that great? Yeah, great. Yeah, let's get on with our lives. It has to be this. Yeah, it has to mean or these other political meanings like Black Lives Matter or anti-SJW type sort of thing. It just kind of makes everything all ugly, really. It's just so. But
I think Black Panther has transcended that because it's a better film than that.
Yeah.
But also, like I say, by the time of Endgame, when all the dusted people make their reappearance, who do you see first?
Yeah.
And I think that is a sign that this character really captured the zeitgeist.
Yeah, definitely.
In a way that probably nothing has since Iron Man.
No, I mean
outside of the team.
Yeah, I mean it was a brand new world as well, and it was. I think T'Challa's actually quite a good stoic hero because I think we'll get into another film, his first appearance, where he does make an impression as well.
Let me do that then.
Well, I'll do my number 3. Oh,
go on.
You back to your number 3. I've lost count now.
Only because of what my number 3 is, but you might be saying the same thing. I don't know. Let's do yours.
Okay, mine is Avengers. The first Avengers.
Sorry, say that again.
Avengers. Yeah, the first one. I think it's. I mean, as you said before, it feels very. It doesn't sound as big as the other films in comparison now, but for then it was a big deal, and you know what? It's still fun. It's still funny. It still rattles along, and I think it was what the film it needed to be, and I think it's very satisfying. I don't have much to say about it beyond that because I think it is just that it's just Whedon doing what he does and making like a fun fun film where all the characters just like having like nifty one-liners interact with each other, and we just get a joy of just seeing them interact. And I think this was important for Marvel going forward. I think had this not worked, we would not have got this far. So yeah, Avengers to my number 3. What's your number 3, Dave?
Well, my number 3 is Civil War, which is why I was going to go straight into it, because we were just talking about T'Challa's first appearance. Why is it not top 2? I think it could be. I think the emotional stakes in this film are as strong as anything in the series, really. I've talked about it a lot, where you shout bigger numbers to get a bigger reaction from the audience, and it's not the way to do it. You know, there's something about Cap and Tony's relationship fracturing over loyalty to Bucky, and Tony realizing that he knew about his parents and stuff like that, that isn't matched. And you can shout billions or trillions of people at risk, and it doesn't feel the same. It's not top 2 for the simple reason that the villain's weak. I can't even remember him half the time or what he wanted. I always need reminding. But it turned out it's Nicky Lauder. So salute you, Mr. Lauder. Obviously passed away just before recording this. Not like just before recording it, but and also the character.
So this one has nothing to do with us. Good, just to clarify.
Yeah, we mentioned Nicky Lauder after he died. But yeah, I think the character introductions are really clumsy in a way that Infinity War even did better. And when you think Infinity War's got to introduce people, loads more people very quickly, but it's all kind of really organic. Whereas here, you know, I keep saying it, but opening a van and there's Scott Lang, I just think, how fucking lazy is that? So the character work's great. The Russo's work is great. I do think it's a step down from their first entry, which I haven't got to yet. But in hindsight, the ramping up of scale works. I did hear complaints that, well, there weren't many of them at the airport, were there? And it's like, well, firstly, one step at a time. Let's slowly introduce people. You can't just throw 200 people on the screen and have them all have an arc. Unless they are just fodder, you know, like at the end of Endgame, where you can just throw everyone on who was, you know, wherever, the armies and so on from the last one. So it's kind of clumsy in execution, but it has a ton of heart. It has emotional stakes. We are now into peak level Marvel, where we are into films that could top this list, but it has a few minor flaws that keeps it out of the top 2. Number 3, Captain America: Civil War.
And has Becca, you done your 3?
Yeah, Black Panther was.
Okay. Black Panther. That was it. Yeah, that was it. So we're in our top 2 now. So
I'll tell you what. Let's play the jingle again. All right, so on we go.
So shall we shall we recap what we have left, or shall we just dive straight into should we dive straight into it? What do you think?
Well, let's have a.
It's going to be between 2 films, isn't it?
Well, I know what Becca hasn't named. I know one of you haven't named. Yeah, no, I know what you two haven't named. Yeah, so I know what's there. So we have not heard. Yeah, go on, Becca. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, so I've got Endgame as number 2.
So have I, Becca. So have I.
Yes. Oh, interesting.
Okay, that's I know what your number 1s are then, so I'm just filling all that in as we go.
Yeah, filling all the gaps, yeah. No, it's very rare it kind of happens, you know. It's kind of the latest for now, this phase. It's the last film in this particular phase of the series. But yeah, it's one of those films that it brings everything all together, and with great weight, great depth, great emotion. And in terms of like a film series, in terms of like Bond and the Star Trek as well, it's kind of really up there as one of those films that really do pack an emotional punch. And as I said, throughout this series, I'm a bit weird. I do struggle with anything that's got like a really big, like huge ensemble cast.
Yeah, I can see that in your rankings. I can see that in your rankings. Theatrical
plays, no problem, anything like that. But sort of films, there's just too much going on, and I do struggle a little bit. I'm a bit special. You have to excuse me. But this one is fine, not a problem. It's a bit contradictory. Apologies for that one. But no, this is a really culturally important film, especially in terms of this particular phase as well. So you had to rank it very high. Number 2.
Yeah, I almost feel like if you were to do this again 6 months, this might be number 1. But I think for now, maybe because it's just like maybe just too early, it's just still setting in. I think I don't know. I'm not still quite sure I'm settled on where it is. However, I think you have to acknowledge not just the quality of it, but also the scale, the importance, and just the achievement in what they've done. I think I said in a review that the endgame feels almost like it's Marvel's greatest hits in a celebratory kind of way. And I do mean that not in a negative, but in the best way possible. It quite cleverly with the whole time travel aspect kind of go back with the previous films, and you get to relive our favourite moments from all the other Marvel films, and it's quite clever in doing that. But also it finalises Tony's arc, it finalises Cap's arc. It does it all so well, and it pays off brilliantly. After what, maybe 10 years, is it? About 10, 11 years?
11 years, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure we can probably pick faults in its logic, and maybe some things don't make sense, but let's face it, who fucking cares? Just do the Austin Powers thing and just don't try not to think about it and enjoy yourself. I think just the sheer scale and the achievement and just the sheer amount going on, I think Endgame earns its place at number 2, maybe possibly future number 1. Who knows? I don't know, but we'll see. But yeah, for now, Endgame is number 2.
Okay, my number 2 is Captain America: The Winter Soldier, and I really agonised over this.
Good.
Sorry, Dave.
Why?
For putting it as low as it is.
Yeah, I feel bad ranking it at number 4.
I was a little bit stunned, to be honest, because I just think this is like almost inarguably like top tier. But we've all got different views on stuff, and Chris, for example, launches a very sort of compelling argument for what will be his number 1 now. So I sort of see the point. I think if Winter Soldier has one flaw, it's the fact that it's part of a series where it didn't reverberate in the way we thought it was going to. That reveal of like it's been Hydra all along was jaw-dropping at the time, and you kind of left going, "Fuck, what does that mean?" And the government hearings and shit like that, and now he's going to go off and find Bucky, and it was just and what happened with Nick Fury and stuff. I just thought this has just got the ability to absolutely upend the whole universe, and then it kind of didn't, did it? Really, let's be honest. It's also probably, along with Black Panther, probably one of the least fun of the top 10. In that the MCU tends to be quite comedic. This really isn't, although there's enough in it that it still feels Marvel. I don't have any complaints with it. It's not Incredible Hulk, dour or whatever.
It's more character stuff, isn't it? Particularly with Sam. Like, you should do another lap. Have you just done it?
Yeah, he ran 13 miles in 30 minutes or something.
Yeah,
and it was just a jog as well. That wasn't even sprinting or anything. So it hasn't reverberated in the same way. And in fact, when we did our review, I probably had one of the worst viewings I ever had of it. This is one of the films I rewatched. I had to, just because I was so agonising over my top 2. I rewatched it, and I stuck it in at number 1 and left it there until about a week ago when I really sort of sat and thought about it again. So yeah, I rewatched this maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. I watched it fairly close to Endgame anyway, and I just think it's wonderful. I just think the character work with Steve, the scenes with Peggy, or the scene with Peggy, that scene with Peggy, which we were
not the scene we rewrote, no.
The one that we were so respectful of when we reviewed the film. We made some naughty sex jokes out of that. But in our defence, he wasn't actually shagging her.
Oh, he was, but his future self was.
Yeah. No, he was. He was shagging someone.
I just seemed like there's a deleted scene but we never got to see where the reveal after Steve leaves, his older self walks in. He goes like, "Right, let's get back to it.
Let's get down to business." I had a wonderful viewing of this when I rewatched it recently. You've really got to kind of concentrate as well, not because it's difficult particularly, but you just get so much more out of it if you give yourself as few distractions as possible. The action's an underrated part of the film. The action was sort of better than I remember. The big sort of chase sequence with Nick, the first big action sequence with Steve. It's almost perfect. And where I was struggling with my rankings early on was that balance between a film standing alone and a film as part of a universe. I had this with The Incredible Hulk. Do you rank the Hulk worse because it doesn't fit in with the series that well, or not? And that's all gone away now. I'm pretty comfortable sticking it second. If someone said to me, if I was to defend this series to somebody, if someone said, "I've never seen any Marvel, I've heard it's shit," or something like that, and they said, "Can you give me one film that would change my mind?" Well, I think you could start in worse places than Iron Man, actually, because it's nice and simple. But if I had to hand somebody this series crowning glory, I would hand them Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I can barely... We'll talk about my number 1 when we get to my number 1, and in fact, I'll go first on that in a minute because we've already seen it on both of your lists. It's probably the best film in the series. It's just not got the emotional gut punch or stakes of either number 3 or number 1, actually. Civil War was a lot more heartrending in its way. As with regard to Endgame, I've stuck that in at number 1. I'm very confident it will stay there for some time. This is an historic piece of filmmaking, but unlike Infinity War, it's married to a great film. Infinity War was set in the chessboard, doing everything it needed to do. Infinity War was about whipping through a lot of plot points. Here we've got 3 distinct acts. The first one is quite mournful. I think how rare that is in superhero films, dealing with loss. Maybe The Dark Knight Rises, or the end of The Dark Knight, where he loses Rachel, and The Dark Knight Rises. No, I suppose he's not really dealing with loss in the same way in that film. But you take my point. We've seen it, but it's rare.
He has a moment in Dark Knight.
Yeah, but But I mean, this has an act, and people trying to move on with the film as a caper film. I like caper films, I've always enjoyed it. I've always enjoyed the Ocean's 11 of this world, and I say always enjoyed them. Most of the sequels are not that good actually, but I like that sort of thing. Certainly a couple of years ago, I enjoyed stuff like Logan Lucky a lot more than Chris did when we reviewed it for a summer review. But so I like that, and then the final act, there's flaws in it. I mean, I honestly. I think I've got a track record on this show now that I'm all for like representation and stuff, but when all the women lined up on the battlefield, I cringed. I thought that was so fucking on the nose. I cringed.
It's because it's forced, Dave. That's what it is. It's just like
that's what it is. That's what it is. It's forced. It's like look what we've done. We've put the women there. Look.
But the thing is that when you have like say Captain Marvel, I mean you got like the Wasp and you got like other notable ones, but you have like the mind read from Guardians, and you have
she'll be a lot of use, won't she? If you need to send someone to sleep on the way,
and you have T'Challa's sister with a little blasters. You just think, I don't think you're quite up to that.
Don't worry, I'm here. Cheers. Not only that, it's like, how would they have heard? The way they're all hearing each other is quite funny as well. Avengers, assemble. We're already here, Steve. No, but I mean, I loved it. The emotional gut punch of Tony. I came home kind of a little bit traumatized by it. You know, I cried several times at this film. I haven't cried at anything else. I got a bit choked when he was sat with Peggy and the Winter Soldier. I did, but I was genuinely a little bit unsettled. And then for a few days afterwards, all I wanted to watch was Marvel films to get that universe back that this was representing the ending of. So it doesn't quite stand alone, but it does. I think you could switch this on and figure out what's happened.
Yeah.
So I think it probably stands alone a little bit better than almost Infinity War. But Infinity War has an ending, to be fair. It's just not a happy ending. It was a real tough call between the two. But yeah, I'm going to leave it at that. Avengers Endgame at number 1 for me.
And so my number 1 is Civil War. I think this could arguably be Endgame.
Becca at the top as well of the second half.
Yeah, I don't know. I regretfully I ranked it too low, but
no, you didn't. Don't worry about it. You ranked it where you wanted to put it. It's fine. Go on. Sorry, Chris.
Yeah, it's fine. I think if I compare it between the Civil War and Endgame, it was one of the few Marvel films which actually did feel like a comic. Like I was just, it was the motion picture version of me flicking through like a graphic novel, and it felt like the characters were making the choices that they were making. Was actually asking these moral decisions, like where would you stand on this? What is the right thing to do? It kind of had the balls to actually put these things forward, and not only that, you actually had the dynamic of the two characters literally clashing. So
Endgame had like America's ass, and this had America's balls.
Yeah. Okay. Well put.
Okay.
Well put. But Endgame would probably have a bit more of an emotional kick in terms of like the journey we've been through. This Civil War felt like an emotional journey of where these characters are, and I mean there was a bit of the journey where we've got to because we have to build up our love and respect for these characters. But I think, what makes it even worse? What makes this work is just actually how we considered their journey throughout the entire films. They are making the logical decisions. They are like it is justified, like where Tony is after Iron Man, after the first Avengers, and then Avengers 2. It does make sense, and same with Cap with Winter Soldier. This is where he'd be now. This is, and they're following through with what they believe. They're not just like going through what the script asks them to do. And it's very well made. It's the action's great. It does almost like the infallible task of introducing not one but two other like Marvel characters who have yet to actually appear in their own standalone film yet, and does it well. That's amazing to me, and considering how packed this film is. I just had to admire just how great and how well made this film is. So for me, it is number 1. I almost like want to do like a double, like the double number 1 with that. This an Endgame, but that'd be cheating. That would just be copying out. But yeah, no. Civil War is my number 1.
Certainly, I think we've all got number 1s I can get on board with entirely, even if I don't necessarily agree. Becca, tell us about your number 1.
My number 1 is Avengers Assemble.
No, it isn't. Because there's no such fucking thing.
You know that film with John Steed and.
That film with Ray Fiennes and Uma Thurman with Sean Connery as the villain. Really? You didn't see that one?
There was a very similar film that came out in 2012 called The Avengers. Do you mean that?
That's the one. Yes, here in England we had to stick Assemble on the end of the film because people thought it would be like the film version of the 1960s spy series starring Patrick Macnee.
This was already printing money by this point, and what bothered me more wasn't just the change of name, because like the film you had in America as The Professional, we've got as Leon.
Exactly.
So we are
Yeah,
aware that you
films do
get
change
names now and
titles.
again, but it was staggeringly fucking inelegant as a name. Avengers Assemble is a really inelegant name. That's my problem with it. They've just picked something so fucking lazy. Do you know, in hindsight, it would almost be better if it was Avengers colon Assemble, because then it would be Avengers colon something every time, and the first
Yeah.
one would have been the Assembled.
This
But
kicked off having
literally,
the colon.
Marvel's The Avengers would have been fine because it's Marvel.
Yeah, rather than just Avengers. That would avoid confusion.
And most of the people who watch the the Avengers on TV are fucking dead now. It was decades ago. It was just really, really stupid. So I refuse to use that title.
I think you should have just gone with Avengers Into Darkness, but there you are.
Avengers making lots of money. Yeah, I put this
Thanos,
one.
Union Singh.
The Avengers, the movie.
Avengers, the movie.
They don't do that anymore, do they? Except when it's Mrs. Brown's Boys or something.
The movie.
Yeah.
Getting a sequel.
The motion picture.
The sequel.
The
It's coming
cash
soon.
in. All right. So why have you got this top, Becca? Why?
I think
why,
why?
Becca?
2 words. Tom Hiddleston. No, I think for me this is kind of where the interest kind of kicked off. Really, obviously it took a few years. But no, this is, I think, just everything that happened around the time of the film. It's all got a bit conflated, to be honest. 2012 did really well. In terms of my work-life balance, it wasn't a good year. But in terms of like culturally for England and for the UK, it was such a massive year. You had like the Olympics, you had the Jubilee, you had new Bond film coming out as well. It was just for me a massive year. And for this is probably the film that I've had like the best time with. I really enjoy it. I keep on going back to it. There's lots of new things I can see each time. It just works on so many different levels for me. And for this one, because I enjoyed it the most out of all of them. That's why I had to rank it number 1. I appreciate Civil War, not Civil War, yeah, Civil War. They'd probably be the better film. But for this one, it's the one I keep on going back to time and time again, just because everything that I have attached to it. Such a fun film. And for me, it kind of really set the mould, I guess, and was kind of like my way in to the rest of this wonderful cinematic universe.
And that's it. So 22 films, 3 lists. One of them really good. 2 of them questionable. All right, that's it for Marvel. We are going to move on to... What are we going to move on to next? We're going to do a Cinematronics episode, me and Chris. Then we're going to do a Bond commentary, which I'll announce to sign us off in a minute. And then we're going to move on to Mission Impossible. And that's it for Marvel for a while. How's the journey been for you guys?
Been emotional.
Long.
Yeah, it has been long. We've had some breaks.
Yeah,
I am glad it's finished.
I'm getting to like similar to I mean, Bond is fine because I can go on forever and ever and ever. Amen. But like with Star Trek, for example, I'm kind of feeling the same sort of fatigue that you felt, Dave, with the Star Trek movies.
Marvel
I mean,
fatigue.
We all felt that. We all
I've
felt
learned
that. We
a
were sick
lot.
of Star Trek after about 8 weeks.
I've learned a lot about it. It's something like I didn't grow up reading the comics, but also it was something that some of my late granddad, dad kind of got into. I think he ended up selling some of the comics, but that was quite interesting as well. So I've kind of learned a lot about the early Marvel comics from fans who I've interacted with. But yeah, I've learned a lot. Definitely, it's been educational, it's been emotional, it's been really interesting, really fascinating, and it's good to see like the evolution of effects of costumes, things like that as well. Especially if
Costumes
we've
really
come
needed
so
to
far.
evolve because they weren't good in the first Avengers film.
No, they've come a long way,
Yeah,
definitely.
they have come a long way. For me, it's been... I haven't struggled with it. I mean, Star Trek, I was struggling. By the end, I was really surprised as well because I like Star Trek, but by the end, I was just sick of it. I just wanted to be done. And the show's come out all right. If you stick on something like, I don't know, Insurrection or something like that, one of the later ones, you can't tell we're bored. I think I finally sort of revealed that in the rankings almost. I was there going, fucking sick of this now, And I really was. And I don't feel that way about this, but we have been going since about last July because of a couple of breaks. I definitely think inadvertently we did better for having a couple of breaks because I think I was complaining deep into phase 2 we hadn't nailed an episode, and the end result's probably fine and we're happy to put them out and we're reasonably proud of what we do, but didn't do any episodes until really late in this run where I thought, yeah, that's one of our better episodes. That's really good. It took an awfully long time because the thing is, most of the films are all right. And I think actually some of our best episodes were in phase 3 because the films are getting better. I think, but funnily enough, some of the early ones, they're not bad, they're not good, they're nothing really. So I've enjoyed the series. I'm glad it's finished. The standard is really high. I mean, you're getting to good films faster than you are on a Bond ranking list. So I think the overall standard is really, really good. I've enjoyed it. What about you, Chris?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I mean, it's a little bit sort of harder because my focus has been a little bit elsewhere as well. So, but yeah, it's been nice to actually. I think Cinematic Universe is definitely worth doing. It was actually quite. It was actually quite good to actually sort of find out where I revisit these things. Usually, when it comes to Marvel, I must say I probably watch them a couple of times in cinema, and that's about it. I rarely go back and revisit it. I might watch one or two if they pop up on Netflix or something like that. But generally speaking, I don't sort of tend to revisit them. So it was really nice to go back and revisit from where it all began, especially with Iron Man, which was. But but it's always nice to actually sort of rewatch them and figure out where I stand, like rankings wise, even because I rarely bother doing rankings. A lot of people sort of, whenever there's a new Marvel film, they just have rankings that's already set, and I just never could be bothered with it. So I finally have one, and it's a controversial one, so we say. But yeah,
controversial.
Yes.
Funnily enough, I think when we did Bond, I actually thought my list was the most controversial in places because I stuck the Spy Who Loved Me really low and things like that. I think I've got the least controversial list here. When I look at my list, I just go, that actually seems all pretty logical. I don't mean right or wrong particularly. I just mean you would find more lists that look like mine than look like yours, I think.
I knew mine would be the more controversial one. The more random one. Even before I even did it, I knew, I think my preferences are going to be...
Yeah.
You're always controversial, Chris.
Well, I knew that when we reviewed Thor and you were talking about it. I thought this bellend's going to stick it in the top 10.
Yeah, but to be fair, we were trying to rank as we go, and it was like, well, you had Iron Man at number one, knowing the Avengers was coming up, and you just sort of had to mobilise when you want it. So, I don't know. I was going to say we'll see where we land. Maybe we do enough rankings once. Some more films have come out, and we see where more.
Definitely, the next time you hear us rank anything, I think will be Star Wars when we got Charlie in. But I think we've been asked for that several times, so we will do it because it is coming to the end of a saga, and there are 11 films now. I think there's just about enough there to do that.
No, it won't be controversial that at all.
No. Empire Strikes Back at 9. Yeah. Okay. So, social media, folks. For me, you can find me at the Pasty Kid 1976 on Twitter.
You can find me on Cinematronix on Twitter. And you can also find all the old shows at cinematronix.co.uk if you can't find them on iTunes because what the fuck? But there you are. Yeah, you can always find them on the website.
Yeah, we've just lost the Roger Moore tribute fucking episode. That's the last one to drop off.
I wonder why that is. Bit of a pain, but oh well.
Chris will find out one day.
We'll have to write to them and say, excuse me, what's going on? So you can follow us on Twitter at Expect Us to Talk. You can also find us on Facebook under the same moniker, Expect Us to Talk. We're also on the YouTube, Do You Expect Us to Talk? And also you can find us under that same name on iTunes when our episodes aren't dropping off. Probably YouTube is probably the best place to find us. On iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, all the best places to find your podcatchers. And if you want, you can drop us an email, expecttotalk@gmail.com.
Super. So, for the first time since last summer, we're going to do a Bond commentary. It's going to be 2 weeks away from perspective of listeners because we weren't available in the interim, or Becca wasn't, so Chris and I will do Cinematronics. I thought about this. This is another one I friggin' agonised about. I was down to about 4 choices. I was going to start with do a Sean Connery film. I've changed my mind.
Oh.
And I just thought, well, the last Bond commentary we did with The Man with the Golden Gun, which is, let's be honest, shit. And it's been years since... The show's good, but the film's crap. It's been I thought after a year we owe people a really, really good Bond film. So therefore, do you expect us to talk? We'll return with a commentary on Casino Royale.
Yes.